For one final time this season in the BMW Sim GT Cup, the BMW M8s are rolling out onto the track with 2 more spots in BMW Live up for grabs. It's been the Team Redline and Coanda Sim Sports Showcase so far here in 2021, with each of the powerhouses having 2 tickets punched to December. But 15 cars get ready to rumble here in Germany for the season finale of Season 1. Delighted that you can join us here live on RaceSpotTV and BMW social media to wrap off an exciting opening to 2021 and BMW Virtual Motorsports. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside for the action, as always, is Lewis McLeod, with TV cameras designed by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com. Additional car cameras provided to us by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxon. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by visiting racespot.wtf/BMW to follow along with your favorite team and drivers using Timing 71 and their world-class suite of data analysis tools. Lewis, 4 races done, 1 to go here in the BMW M8. Like I said, it's been the Redline and Coanda Showcase so far. It could still end up being that way at the conclusion of a 2-hour sprint, but there are several other teams looking to make their mark on this championship.
It's wide open. Yes, we've got plenty of VRS Coanders and Team Redlines out there as well, joining the 15-car grid. And it has been a battle of Redlines and Coanders for those tickets this season. But trust me, there are teams that can push their way among that as well. MSI Esports have shown great pace. Kova as well. They are looking to bag their way into a ticket to Munich at the end of the year, and it is entirely possible.
So we take a look then at the 16-team list that was entered into this race. Looks like one of the VRS Coanda teams is not going to be competing in today's action. I believe that's the Ayachan Guven and Marti Piatella cars. So just 15 cars, but this is a strong list. You've got 2 Redline, 2 Coanda cars, but you're going to have to watch out here, Lewis, for R8G, Kova, and BS competition. Multiple entries in each of those outfits. They could play some strategy games here today.
Yeah, there are strong outfits behind it. And this is a beautiful thing that we spoke about a little bit at the final round before we came into this, so the penultimate round, Road Atlanta, where realistically, you want 2 cars on the grid, because when you're going up against Redline, when you're going up against Coanda, if you want to win, if you want a good spot, you want to have a couple of cars to play with on strategy, because it's going to be a tight fight out there with such a small grid.
And so let's kind of talk about the road that we've been on. Wonderful graphic here to illustrate how the first 4 races in this season have gone. The winner and the 2 drivers have advanced directly into Munich and the BMW Sim Live event in December. 2nd through 5th, they have gotten funneled down into the Season 1 finale. Drivers have been able to nominate replacements if drivers are unable to take to the grid here today. That means some drivers have not competed in the first 4 rounds. Talk a bit about this season so far, Lewis. We've competed in this BMW M8 on a grand tour from the high banks of Daytona all the way to the land of the rising sun, then to the home of British motorsports, and last time at Brazelton, Georgia, just a couple of weeks ago. There was cash prizes on the line for the first 4 races, and that was described here on screen, $4,200 in total. Here today, though, in the season finale, it's just the 2 trips to Munich on the line.
Yeah, that's the important thing, is that there's 2 tickets to Munich up for offers today, not just the 1. It was always 1 in the previous 4 rounds. The first race of the season went the way of Team Redline Blue, and then Team Redline with Max Bonecker and Benito won at Suzuka. And from that point on, it was all about Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong winning both at Silverstone and, of course, at Road Atlanta as well. They were assisted by really, really good qualifyings by the VRS Coanda bunch, getting onto the front row of the grid in the first 2 rounds. Dane Warren qualified so well, and they'd locked out the front row of both those first rounds, and they were basically always up inside the top 10 with all of their cars, and that is 5 cars that qualified well. Coming here today, they've only realistically, as far as we can see, got actually 2 on the grid. So a front row lockout from this scenario, they might need it, to be honest, because their race pace, being a bit harsh, their race pace doesn't seem as good as their qualifying potential.
I think it's a fair comment as well. Qualifying, by the way, is underway. 10 minutes, and drivers are able to get, I think, the track to themselves to set their fastest lap times. Let's check in with Valtteri Alander here in the 777 for Kova Esports. making his way down the hill in towards the Dunlop hairpin. You can see 7 cars have already set provisional qualifying lap times, with the VRS Coanda driver of David Williams being on provisional pole. It's Thibaut Casabon for R8G in second, with his teammate Martin van Luzenoord in provisional third. We will wait for the Team Redline cars to come across the line. Interesting track here today, Lewis. Lots of BMW logos scattered across the place, which is always a lovely thing to see, but one of the things that we were talking about just before we came on air, there's so many different ways that you can try and make a pass happen. It's a bit more difficult than it sounds. One of the main passing opportunities will be down this main straightaway into the slower NGK chicane.
Yeah, it's tight up here. I mean, it's a fantastic venue, of course, realistically, the home of German motorsport. One that some drivers really do gel with quite well, and other drivers, there is a flow around here that some drivers just can't seem to find. And it comes down to the slight stoppy-start nature of some parts of it, and then you've got the high-speed commitment down at Dunlop and the Schumacher S. It's a very tricky circuit with very differing sides to it. As I say, some drivers really love it. Others actually really dislike coming here. But for those that do like it, you need to have a teammate that also enjoys the venue as well, that you're all kind of on the same wavelength, because it's going to be hard. It's a hard track to pass at, so strategy is going to be key. Fuel saving potentially. We saw plenty of that at Road Atlanta. Getting through actually on the circuit, you've got turn 1 and you've got the NGK chicane, the two fairly obvious overtaking potentials. Everywhere else is an overtaking opportunity, but you have to be brave, you have to be committed, and most importantly, you have to nail the previous corner, because it's so crucial around here.
And I think one of the other things, Lewis, that I think you and I kind of touched on as well before we came on is, because it's a smaller field, it kind of gives two different factors that you can look at it depending on how you view races like this. One, it means less cars, less chaos, so as long as you're in 15th position but only about 5 seconds adrift from the leader, you never know, you might still be able to take one of those tickets home. The other kind of point to the argument is, well, with 16 cars, if you fall 5 seconds adrift, you're already losing track of the leaders as VRS Coanda and Dane Warren now to the front of the timing sheet, so it's an all VRS front row as things stand. It will be interesting how aggressive cars are in the early stages of the race.
How important was it for VRS to qualify well with the Coanda bunch at the previous couple of rounds? Because when Josh Rogers won, obviously with Mitchell de Jong, but it was all about the start of the race at both of the previous rounds, where they had a teammate that qualified, actually in the last 2 rounds they qualified in 3rd, but really sort of affected things going into turn 1, allowing Josh Rogers to pull away and effectively pull out a gap that would allow Mitchell de Jong to get in the car and just do what he does best and just set decent lap times, consistent and comfortable. And from that point on, that first lap, whilst having the other Coanda cars going on the attack, basically just helped them break away. At this point, you know, we could see, obviously there's 2 tickets up for grabs, we could see both those tickets go the way of VRS Coanda. I actually really don't think it's going to go. I think VRS Coanda Simsport will get 1. But the second one, I think that's up for grabs for someone else. And I don't know why, just getting a vibe, it's not going to be Team Redline. I think like MSI Esports potentially are going to be right up there, maybe even Urano.
Well, Urano 7th in qualifying. I was going to say, why not R8G? They've got a lockout on row 2 as Rietveld, a bit too much on the inside of the chicane. Not sure if that's going to compromise him down into this final right-hand hairpin. Let's watch the lap time. It's a 45 as he gets down onto the power in the BMW M8 GTE. The final time we'll see the big boy out on track. It's a 51.226. I believe that might be the slowest qualifying lap time. In fact, I don't think it counted there, Lewis, because of an off-track there. So it will be Rietveld starting all the way at the tail end of the field.
Yeah, with P1 Esports as well, the other team yet to set a time. That's why we've got 13 on the leaderboard there on the left-hand side. So a couple of drivers not taking advantage of this qualifying session. I think where normally, you know, where we've got like a 50-car grid, you know, if you miss qualifying, if you mess up in there and you're starting from the back, that's tragic, because, I mean, you've got a long afternoon ahead, and when, you know, you need to get into the top 5 or, you know, win the race to get yourself a ticket to Munich, that's where you're really on the back foot. Whereas here, if you miss qualifying, yeah, you're going to be starting from 15th, but it's not as tragic.
Well, and the one thing, Lewis, that we really, I don't think, mentioned in this pre-show that we probably should have emphasized a little bit more with 10 seconds left in qualifying here. Live race control. We haven't had that this season so far. It has been a bit of a bumper car showcase in some of the opening laps here in the Season 1 of the BMW Sim GT Cup. That will not be the case here today because RaceSpotTV does have a live steward in the session. Qualifying comes to a close. Now let's go trackside for the final time this season to take a look at our starting grid in the season finale. So it'll be Dane Warren leading off the VRS Coanda front row. His teammate David Williams less than 1/10 of a second off his pace. R8G on the inside and outside of row number 2. Roman Grosjean will be delighted to see that. Came oh so close to victory yesterday in the NTT IndyCar Series. Chris Lullum, not new to Redline in terms of competition, but recently signed up for them full-time. He'll be inside of Salva Talon for the MSI Esports team. Watch out on a row number 3. Urano Esports' Daniel Pastor inside of Valtteri Alander, a race winner just a week ago in the ISO WC round number 1 in the open wheel side of things, with Yago Martinez and Kevin Ellis Jr. on the edge of the top 10. It's Tumis Tatala, previous race winner here in the BMW Sim 120 2020. He'll be alongside BS Competition and the Zebras and Phil Denez. Ryan Barneveld alongside Jeffrey Rietveld, the first car not to set a qualifying lap time. And it will be P1 Esports and Andreas Jokenheim to take us to at the end of this field. Relatively short, Lewis. It feels a bit weird given what we've seen earlier this season.
It does feel bizarre. It almost feels like we've signed up and we're commentating on a little club race where, you know, not many people have shown up and it's just a bit more relaxed, it's a bit calmer. Not the case. These are the best in sim racing, about to take it around for another couple of hours of racing to finish the season. Coanda on the front row. It is going to be a tough affair, but I reckon the likes of R8G, the likes of MSI, Urano Esports, they can get among them, and someone else might be sneaking themselves a victory and a ticket to Munich.
And we've been saying 2 trips to Munich. That's 2 teams that will make trips. It's 4 more drivers that will punch their way into our season finale in December in Munich. BMW Live, it's always such a fun event. It's been Coanda and Redline so far here in 2021. It's VRS Coanda once more at the front. Let's get underway in our season finale. 2 wide almost throughout the entirety of the field, but down into turn 1 we are going to storm our way. 3 wide further back in the pack. The chaos that we expected comes as Lullum looks down to the inside of turn number 1. It is Coanda that leads 1 and 2. RHE 3 and 4 with Redline in 5th. Urano Esports up into 6th here, Chris.
The MSI cars dropping backwards. I don't know quite what's happened. I will say one thing about that start. A big deal for VRS Coanda, who launched out of the corner, was Dane Warren. Departed that final corner at absolutely high speed. And it almost caught everyone napping. And it allowed them to just stretch out the field and almost cover off the R8G cars.
And they are really juking it out right now as they work their way in through the second sector. At Zenith Esports side by side with Tatala, who's almost squeezed off into the gravel. This is for 9th and 10th position. I think the 707 should be able to get in front to the braking zone of the Dunlop hairpin. Around the outside, he will sweep as they climb their way up into the Schumacher S's right now. Out front, the gap is up to 0.6 of a second between the 2 VRS teammates. Finally, they get single filed there on the edge of the top 10. Take a look at them streaking their way down into the left-hand braking zone now. It was a disappointing start for MSI Esports, but Urano taking full advantage up into the top 6.
Yeah, Daniel Pastor currently behind the wheel of that one. He'll be joined by Dylan Scrivens. Of course, we know the lineups. We've seen them race. We've seen them battle across various points in this season. Dylan Scrivens, we were speaking about in the last round, one of the drivers that's moved over to Urano and seems to have fit in there quite comfortably. Going on the attack on some of the biggest names in sim racing, including taking on Team Redline as well. They've got MSI Esports behind, who were very impressive in the last round. Sanchez qualifying on the front row, dropped back a little bit through the race, but still decent results for them. This is looking backwards towards that hungry pack chasing. It is one big train.
It is really one big train. I think that was Rietveld ducking to the inside. Something's happened to Kevin Ellis Jr. in the Apex Racing Team, number 99. They are back down on pit road, so I guess we've got at least one RaceSpotTV replay to take a look at then. And we'll see maybe if we can also get the start queued up as well. But for now, following the R8G cars, third and fourth, it's Casabon being chased down by his teammate Martin van Luzeno. There is so much World Championship experience in this field here today, Lewis. We started with 4 current World Championship drivers on the grid. Kevin Ellis, unfortunately, has retired. But you think about someone like Casabon last year in the World Championship, someone like Van Luzeno who goes back all the way to the open wheel days as well.
Yeah, it's an enormous field of talent, despite it only being 15 cars, now down to 14. But those drivers are under a lot of pressure. Said about how VRS Commander, they might use their second car to effectively almost, even if it's accidentally, slow down the rest of the field. Seems to be exactly what is happening now. Dane Warren is pulling away by quite a bit over David Williams, who is under an awful lot of pressure from the R8G duo of Casabon and Van Luzenoord. So much pressure from behind. Don't quite know why David Williams, a driver of his stature, is struggling quite as much in the early stage, but those R8G cars are hunting.
And the teal-trimmed car that now leads 1.3 seconds clear down into the NGK chicane. Williams having to go very defensive at this point in time. A bit of a cork in the bottle. If you're Warren now, the gap has been elongated sufficiently that the draft is no longer so much of a consideration as well. It's 1.8 seconds back to the third-place car in the R8G machine. Will they make the move down into turn number 1? You don't want to be caught up too long here, Lewis, because unlike at Road Atlanta where it was a bit of a struggle to get to the end of the hour on fuel, here you can pretty confidently, I think, save the amount that you need. Casabon looks to the outside, nothing doing for now. He's looking increasingly desperate.
Yeah, I think maybe a tiny bit of fuel, but nothing major. Like you can keep your speed more than up enough to and just balance the numbers. It's really not difficult, unlike Road Atlanta where it was extremely hard to save that level of fuel. Around here, like you say, he's got to go for it. And the problem with that, with Casabon, if he goes for it, it needs to be committed. It needs to be done clean and sent. You can't go side-by-side, corner after corner. You were saying about this beforehand with the NGK chicane. It's so tight through there. If you're going to get a move into there, you need to do it and you need to go. If you're side-by-side, you lose so much time.
Wonderful aerial shot now at the bottom of the hill as they climb their way up into the wonderful Schumacher S's. I wonder if there's a tiny bit of a lift here in this M8 GTE or if they're almost flat to the floor. A gap continues to extend between first and second. It was getting increasingly close on the edge of the top 10 with Zenith Esports and BS Competition. I tell you what, I think sufficient time has passed now. Let's see if we can spool up the BMW replay on the start. Let's see if we can go back slightly further here, Lewis, and pick up what you were talking about down into the final corner. It was a very early launch from Dane Warren. Slightly caught his teammate napping there through the final corner.
Yeah, watch them go slow. So they're not lined up side by side. There's a lot of space being given. As you can see, the sort of trains on either side are separated quite a lot. The Team Redline car are also giving an awful lot of room. They're not bunched up as much as they would have thought they would. And boom, there goes Dane Warren. The gap already opened out. And as he's giving the slipstream to his teammate, it just allows them to pull the train apart.
And so let's stick with this and pick up what happens to the Apex Racing Team and Kevin Ellis Jr. He's almost 3 wide with Kova and Zenith. Ooh, contact from behind. It's going to be more contact with that Zenith car. And, well, I don't know if Kevin was too appreciative of that. I wonder if there's some steering damage as well that he incurs. And more contact with the red Zebra there down into the Mercedes arena.
I was going to say, I was wondering if it had maybe popped. Oh, there was something there, though. Not 100% sure what just happened, but bail from it. Maybe there was damage on the rear right. It seemed like it was a fair whack coming out of T1, but yeah, either way, shame to see them out so early at one of the teams that definitely could have seen marching forward. Alas, we will see them march into the pit lane and out of the race. Look at the pressure, though. R8G all over Coanda.
Look at how defensive Williams is feeling the need to go as well. He's just enabling his teammate to scamper away with this one. Dane Warren will be pretty comfortable, I would think, right now. The gap 2.6 seconds as the lights continue to flash from the R8G car. See if there'll be a move down here, but the R8G car looks to the outside. Now Jinx to the inside. Oh. Who will send it deep under the brakes? It's Williams that's sending it slightly later. This is incredible stuff, Lewis, but it's really costing the R8G car so much time.
It's high risk. It is so high risk. You can tell how desperate Kazaban is to get through right now. If the person I don't want to be in this train is actually Van Loosenhoor, because you're trying to attack from behind. You've also got the red line car of Chris Lulham a part of that as well. And so you're trying desperately not to hit your teammate whilst also battling to keep this other dude behind you. It's really tricky, and it's so easy to trip over yourself and cause something, fairly calamitous for the entire team. Fastest lap for Dane Warren, no surprise, leading clear.
I got a bit worried there. I thought for a second there were going to be 2 R8G cars out and the red line red car that was looking to try and get past Van Loosenhoor. Oh, that was sketchy for a moment. Gap between first and second is 3 seconds now, Lewis, and you've got a train forming from second all the way through to 14th, separated by just 3 and a bit seconds.
I was going to say, not long before that gap for the lead is bigger than the gap between second and the rest of the field. Pulling away very, very quickly, courtesy of the defensive driving from David Williams. But like I say, the attack from behind, if you're in the mid-pack here, you're just playing a bit patient. You're waiting for the second half of this race, maybe even just waiting for 20, 30 minutes time before you go on the attack. For the likes of Salva Talens, of Valtteri Alander, for MSI Esports, and the 2 Kova cars, Tattler, they're all down the back end of this top 10. They're just waiting. They're just waiting to find their moment and their time. I mean, BS Competition, Phil Dennis behind the wheel of that one at present. I remember saying the first round of the season, I'm pretty sure they qualified down in 19th place and worked their way up inside the top 5. So if there's a team that knows how to overtake and drivers that can do it, it would be that BS Competition bunch that is down in 10th.
Oh, there's a great comment in our YouTube chat right now. We got the bus commander and David Williams forming the rear gunner for Dane Warren right now. And like you said, fastest lap for Warren is a 1:51, a 6:06. The only other car to dip into the 51s was Urano Esports, who are stuck in 6th position. And, well, the gap 3.3. I think we can start talking about now the battle for that second trip to Munich, because Warren and his teammate might have at least the first ticket in their hands, as we're only 10 minutes done here. Some conversation in the YouTube chat, Lewis. So for those who are joining us just now, let's give them the story of the season so far. We started with public events in the first 4 races. 40-plus drivers competing for 1 trip to Munich and 4,200 in cash prizes in each of those races. If you finished between 2nd and 5th, though, in those first 4 rounds, you got invited to the season finale, where 2 tickets are on the line to Munich.
Yeah, it's been a chaotic season of fantastic racing, to be honest. For those of you that know, it's like we said, it's 4 tickets that go out, so to 2 different teams. So at the moment, if things were to finish as they are, it's much simpler in this, because we know that no one on the grid has a ticket to Munich yet. So it is just the top 2 teams, that both the drivers get tickets at present, as we're seeing a dive from the red line car on R8G. That's Chris Lulham diving it to the inside of Van Loosenhoor. No way through at present. At the moment, the drivers and teams that have tickets to Munich, we've got 4 that are going the way of Redline and 4 that are going the way of VRS Coanda. From the first round, it was Vecchio and Wallmeyer, and then from the second round, it was Enzo Benito and Maximilian Benneker. Those all got their tickets in the first 2. Then it was all about VRS Coanda. Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong then won at Silverstone. Last time out, they did win at Road Atlanta, but the ticket then goes to the next team that doesn't have a ticket, which ended up being 3rd place finishers, Jeremy Beetleep and Charlie Collins. Those are the 8 drivers at present that have a ticket, and we're looking to find the next 4 to join them, which looks at the moment like it's going to be VRS Coanda, although I do wonder what the use-by date is on VRS Coanda's number 8 car, because it's about to be sent down the road, I get the feeling, because it is pretty tight and hectic.
Oh, and you saw there Van Loosenhoor checked up through the chicane. That opened the door for Lulham to sling it down the inside through the final corner. Can the red line red car make his way up into 4th place and break the stranglehold of R8G on positions 3 and 4? Not for now, but they are snaking their way down the pit straightaway. Oh, that is very close and very aggressive between these 2 drivers. Lulham trying to pin the R8G car all the way to the inside of the track. It's side by side between MSI and Urano, as MSI try and reclaim that 6th position. Still looking to the inside as Salva Talens in through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Can he get the car slowed down and set up now for the next portion of the corner? Yes, he can. Supremely confident. And what for Valtteri Alander to come through as well.
That excursion on the exit of the arena section certainly won't help Valtteri Alander, but good move from Salva Talens, really nicely done down the inside, clean. Space was obviously given from Daniel Pazdur, so nice stuff and a good display between the two. It's given a little bit of room and a little bit of reprieve to Chris Lullum so he can potentially start setting up an attack on Van Loozenhoort now that he doesn't have the pressure from behind. For them, though, it's... For these guys at the middle of this pack, it's not a rush, I don't think. I was going to say it's not a race, it certainly is. It's not a rush to get to the front. It's just about pace, it's about timing and about doing it right and doing it cleanly, especially with race control keeping their eye on everyone. For those at the front, though, for the likes of RH Esports, they're desperate to get through now because I would assume they're going to feel that if they can break past now, they can clear off.
And you can see left side of the screen, the top 8 now with MSI regaining that 6th. Haven't actually switched around at all in this race. It's been status quo at the front. Bit of a shake-up at the back. Another comment in the YouTube chat that made me just chuckle very slightly here, Lewis, from Simon Feigl, team boss of Altus Esports. The Trulli train, well and truly, on display here at the Nürburgring.
That is that an attempt at a pun? The Trulli train, truly?
Ooh. It wasn't, but I like where your mind is going with it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like where my mind's going with it, but I also do like a good pun. It's terrible attitude. Either way, our focus on the screen, Urano said they've dropped that position. They're not going to be worried. Not about what's ahead of them. Potentially a little bit about what's behind, because you've now got 2 Kova cars that want to get by. And Kova, how many times do we say about this every time we see their cars moving forward, are a team that have been a part of sim racing not for a huge amount of time, but are a team in esports that have been a part of esports for a very long time, and they are a really strong outfit in sim racing.
And I mean, talk about each of the drivers behind the wheel right now. You've got Tattler, who won at Road Atlanta in November of last year to punch his ticket to Munich in this M8, and in front of him Valtteri Alander, who, I mean, Lewis, you and I were in the comms booth last weekend for the ISOWC season opener. What can you say about the performance from Alander? I mean, he was enjoying the fight so much that we had his webcam up on the screen at one point during the race when he was side by side with the iRacing Rallycross world champion Johan Harth. And despite the fact that he lost out on the position, he was smiling from ear to ear.
Yeah, it seemed to just, again, this is what I love seeing this, just seemed to be enjoying his craft. And that is so important to me when we're watching drivers race, when we're seeing people battling it out at the very top of their field. You want to see them enjoying it. And to be fair, let's be real to him, ended that race taking the top spot, did Valtteri Alander, and in, to be honest, by the end, fairly comfortable and confident stead.
Van Loozenhoort,
what is happening?
Must be a slowdown penalty there of some kind.
BS.
So we'll see.
Go on, carry on.
No, go ahead. I'm not sure what happened there, Lewis. Just saw that he was slowing down very suddenly and continues to slow down here down the main straightaway.
I think the same thing happened to BS competition, because if you look, Phil Denez has dropped down to the back of the pack. As we saw this RHG part, you might have just caught it at the top of your screen, that the BS competition car also did exactly the same thing. Potential excursions, just a little bit too much through the chicane. Let's take a look.
Oh, you don't get a great look there, but I tell you what, he has clobbered the second part of the curb, and we will jump one more look at the onboard and see if we can get this better look. In fact, I tell you what, I think we're going to get the aerial look if we can, and go super slow-mo as well. And you can see there, he has gone all the way. He's almost onto the AstroTurf on the inside of the corner there.
Yeah, I think you can get away with it. It's up to basically the 2 wheels on the left-hand side of your car, which will be, with the outside tyres. If they avoid touching that sausage curb completely, you're all good. But we're going to see the same thing from this car here. Phil Denez behind the wheel. See that you can see instantly from his turning point. You can see, there you go. There's those 2 wheels on the left-hand side touching that sausage curb, and that's it. It seems harsh. It can be pretty harsh, but if you're staying within track limits, you're all well and good. The problem is they push it, as you would do being a racer, to the very edge of what is possible.
Well, for the first time, there is separation now behind David Williams. Just a couple of tenths between him and Thibaut Casabon still. But Chris Lullum finds himself 0.8 of a second adrift from the battle for second. And MSI Esports a further 0.8 tenths back from there. So a bit of a checkup caused by Van Loozenhoort, who slots himself into 6th position. No longer now VRS and RHG 1, 2, 3, 4. Question is, what can Chris Lullum do if he closes up here? He was the one looking the most aggressive in the opening 10 minutes of the race here, Lewis. I suspect we'll see something similar once he catches up once more.
Yeah, as much as this train split apart, I actually would take a pretty solid bet that it is going to come back together again, just as the defence of David Williams. I wonder if, so obviously going a little bit slow at the moment, I wonder if also part of that is about just not taking as much risk with track limits. Which, to be honest, in a race like this, whilst you're under pressure, yes, at the early stages, and that is painful and hard work, and it really is exhausting. If you don't push that, if you never get like a slowdown throughout the race, you may well be moving, obviously not forward from his current position, but just away from the rest of the train. And that is where you can get yourself into that second place, hold that second place, and get yourself and your teammate that ticket to Munich.
Well, as the YouTube chat has just pointed out, Lewis, you made the point that the gap between P1 and 2 is about to be larger than the gap between P2 and 14. I think the next time at the line, we may be seeing that. The gap between Warren and Williams is 5 seconds. And I want to be clear here. I don't think there's any sort of team orders going on. I mean, sure, you could speculate that, but Williams doesn't look like he's artificially backing the pack up. He just looks like he's running his own pace right now, and Casabon has been unable to find a way past.
Well, his lap times, they're only, and this is the difference of everyone in this kind of grid, they're only 0.4 of a lap slower than the race leader and his teammate, which, yes, is an enormous margin, but all things considered, it's only 0.4. See, look at how much safer he was through the NGK chicane there. He was miles away from even getting two wheels. Like, he was way away from cutting an excursion. I think Zenith Esports have picked up their one. There you go. There they are, and dropping back to the end of the train. We are going to see that quite a lot. As long as you don't break off the slipstream, though, it should be okay.
Once more down into turn 1. Casabon thought about it, you know. Williams was aggressively defending the inside, but for a second, I do think the Frenchman was just thinking about the move. Let's talk about the action yesterday as the month of May kicked off, not just on the iRacing service as Phil Kraus won the second annual iRacing Fixed 500. It was also the Indy GP as they went the wrong way down the main straight at the Brickyard, if you ask me, as now a very much an ardent fan of IndyCar racing. It was exciting. Roman Grosjean, his first ever pole position, Lewis, unable to convert it to victory. At the end of the day, though, just as exciting to see someone like Rinus VeeKay take the first victory for a Dutch driver in almost 14 years.
Yeah, well, what a way to take your first victory. Why not? I mean, the thing with that kind of stuff is I always get the feeling that, you know, if you're a fan of, you know, Rinus VeeKay, which actually, to be honest, I think most of us are, what a talent, and it seems like he's got a great personality, a good head on his shoulders. For a lot of us, though, you know, you watch a rookie take their first win, and you think, I can do that. It's my time. It is my time to sort of make that step, and you know, in this sense, it can actually give you a boost in sim racing as you kind of channel that and push forward. And yeah, sure, Roman Grosjean didn't win the race, fair enough, did get pole position, did move forward, and I get the feeling that for the R8G bunch, that just that visual positivity does just give you a boost a little bit, and they are looking, you know, they're going toe-to-toe with Redline and VRS Commander here, which, yes, we've seen them do before, but they are looking mighty strong right now.
And I did say Chris Lullum is going to get aggressive. He's already right on the tail end here, and Thibaut Casabon has drifted away from the draft of Williams for now, weaving down this pit straightaway. Which way is the R8G driver going to defend? He goes to the inside, forces Lullum to think about the outside move. He almost comes across into the path of the R8G driver. Elbows are getting out there right now, Lewis. These guys all know that with 1 hour and 40 minutes left, Dane Warren and his teammate Hyper Mac Backham are very much running away with 2 tickets to Munich.
Yeah, Redline want to do it. Redline want to take it off of Commander for other reasons. I said before that the tickets that have already been dished out, you've got effectively, you've got 2 cars of VRS Commander and you've got 2 cars of Team Redline going to Munich and going to that final so far. The last thing that Redline want to do is hand their major rivals an extra 2 tickets. They want, you know, if VRS Commander are going to win one, Team Redline are going to win one. They've got to keep it even 3-3, especially considering Team Redline started out this season, at least in the races, being the stronger of the 2 teams.
It was an interesting opening couple of rounds. I mean, VRS Coanda and Redline have come to blows on so many occasions. I mean, think about the first two races where Rogers and Verstappen made contact with one another. Not necessarily at Daytona. It was Verstappen that caused the contact with the Brazilian mate's car for Rogers. Then at Suzuka, I mean, there was drama down into turn one. What an interesting race that was. It was Benito and Beneke that took home the win amidst all the carnage. But from then, it's been Rogers in races 3 and 4, Lewis, pole position, and converting that to victory with Mitchell de Jong.
Yeah, we couldn't believe it when we saw that incident at turn 1 at Suzuka, as we're seeing something that we do have to believe, as Zenith Esports going to get down the inside of P1, just P1 overcooking the NGK chicane there quite a bit. Jochimson, who's behind the wheel at the moment, gets passed by Iago Martinez, and that position switch, they need to get on with it a little bit because they're dropping off of the train and they're losing that slipstream, which could be oh so important just to keep in the mix of things. But yeah, that incident down at turn 1, it was just a surprise to see because we don't normally see mistakes from Josh Rogers, and we certainly saw one then, and I think there was another one in that race as well. Rare to see. Clearly put that one to bed by winning the next 2 races in dominant fashion.
Just good to see. I think that aliens make mistakes as well, right? Lewis says, Lolum takes a look once more to the inside. He wants to get on past Casabon. Gap between first and second, 6.3. And Casabon is 0.8 behind Williams right now. So for the first time in today's action, almost 30 minutes into the race, Williams is starting to pick up the pace.
Seems to be getting on with it a little bit more. Maybe a lot of it is looking after tyre wear. I don't think this circuit's the biggest tyre killer because a lot of the corners that you go through are fairly low speed, but they're quite consistent. It's one after the other, and you don't have too much time to breathe, and you don't have too much time to cool the tyres down through that midpoint of the circuit. I don't think tyre wear's too hard, but it could potentially be playing a factor in it for Williams. If not, maybe just mentally not being a part of the race. That is entirely possible, no matter how good you are. Sometimes, and you can't put your finger on why, but you're driving around and you're hitting every apex, you're doing everything right, you're doing everything you think you should be doing, but the pace just isn't there and you can't work out why. Seems like that is being put to bed a little bit. Another fastest lap from Dane Warren coming in, and David Williams going to cross the line, see what he does when it comes to the timesheets. I think it was only 3/10 down. It wasn't another fast lap, I misread, but 3/10 down then again on the lap, so still fair amount slower.
Warren just seems to have the afterburners well and truly engaged to maximum. Track conditions relatively cool in the air with 18 degrees Celsius, but then 31 degrees on the track. Not sure how that's going to be warming up and blistering the tires. A relatively strong 18 kilometer an hour gusts of wind as well. The final time we will see the big boy out on track here in 2021 for the BMW Sim GT Cup, Lewis, when we return later this year, scheduled to be confirmed at a later date on the BMW social media channels. It will be with the brand new BMW M4 GT3 car.
Yeah, one thing that we've had a little bit of experience in, we've raced it a few times, I think now. It's a car which, to be honest, of the GT3s at the moment, I really like. It's fairly predictable in its sense. It's got a decent balance to it, and it's actually quite good fun. And to see them racing this, it's going to have different advantages. So drivers that have slightly different driving styles, maybe they like a car that's a bit more sharp on the nose, that's a bit more pointy, might be a car that will work out more so for them.
I got to drive it for the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, and well, unfortunately, by the time I got behind the wheel 12 hours into the race, it was no longer factory fresh. In fact, I don't think you can even call it certified pre-owned at that point in time, the amount of damage and repairs that we put that poor car through. But very stable, and I must say, I only made a couple of mistakes in my stint, which you have to put down to driver error. I wonder if Valtteri Alander has just made that same mistake in through the chicane and gotten a slowdown penalty. He's dropped out of the top 10 now and behind the red line ice blue machine.
Yeah, by the way, the fastest car, at least not, I don't think on that last lap, but on the lap before, the fastest car of anyone was Phil Dennis, who was at the back of that train. You can see there, yeah, instantly just took way too much curb. And yeah, boom, it has cost them. Quite quick with the penalty, obviously the game dishing that out. And I'm all for it, apart from when I'm in the car. And I'm like, oh my God, no, please don't.
Well, and when you're in the car as well, it always feels as though like the track limits are changing, Lewis, right? It never feels like the race control is giving you a fair shake.
I've had the because it comes up, for those of you that don't know, that maybe there's some of you out there that's never played iRacing, and you should. It's a perfect time to get on it. But if you have a track cut, it'll tell you give back 1.6 seconds, something like that. And if you leave it, it'll tell you to give back more time. That's why you see them go through the chicane and then pull out straight away, because they're like, right, quick, get this gone. The amount of times that you've seen a driver, though, who've gone, I've given back 1.6 seconds. This is way more. And I've had it before where I've given like back way more than the time that it said, just because of you need to serve it basically instantly. If you want just that 1.6 seconds, you serve it straight away, and all these drivers know it.
Well, and recently, I forget how recently, but within the last 12 months, I want to say, they added at least a countdown timer telling you how long you have to serve the remainder of the time before it gives you the black flag. Throwing themselves over the chicane are these M8s, with Williams now just 0.2 of a second in front of Casabon once more. The gap almost 7 seconds between the two VRS cars. Dane Warren has not had to look in his rearview mirrors at all. The first race that he hasn't had any contact at the start either. Here comes the move then from Casabon once more. And Williams comes back and slots back into line. I'm starting to get a bit intrigued as to the strategy here from Casabon. I would be assuming at this point, Lewis, if he's not showing his nose, he's just saving fuel and waiting to come down onto pit road in 30 minutes' time.
There is also potential, and this is a bit more from a psychological point of view, of, okay, clearly going all out on the attack hasn't worked. So if and this is something that you'll see a lot in racing, is that if you're not going to show your nose, that's fine, because what you're doing is you're waiting for the right time to show your nose. Because if you're showing your nose constantly, that's actually quite easy to defend from, because you always know that in every corner they're going to be looking. It's not productive to good lap times. It's not productive to even making a decent move. Whereas if you sit back, you let them relax a little bit, you keep the pressure up, hoping for a mistake, but you're never looking for anything. Let them get comfortable. When they get comfortable, that is when you pounce. That is when the prey is open and you can dive down the inside. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that from Casabon, who's just waiting and just allowing David Williams to get a bit more comfortable, and then we'll go on the attack again.
Lap time from Warren was just a 10th quicker than Williams last time. Casabon almost matching the race leader, so if there's a rear gunner action, I don't necessarily think it's necessarily by intent, because David Williams is very much pushing to the best of his abilities. Last time around here, he was only 200 slower than his fastest lap time, so there's a lot of chatter in the YouTube chat about team games and how this would go. I'm not necessarily seeing anything wrong with this. And at the end of the day, Lewis, all it's doing is really making it that the battle for second is really now proving to be a 7-car race.
Yeah, there you can see just following the diving and weaving. There's the dive. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, here it comes still. Side by side through the arena. Can Lullum force it down the inside? He instigated all of the chaos down into turn number 1. Opens the door. Casabon closes it shut, though, very firmly. That was a interesting move there down into turn 1. Let's go take a look at the BMW replay, Lewis.
I'm not sure if it was super intended, because it was from a long way back. Look at how far back he is. Maybe it might have been a bit of fuel saving from Williams. There you go. Looks to the inside. I think it might have just been the camera making that look an awful lot worse than it was, because it looked like it was a huge dive. Didn't quite get there. Assisted by Williams missing the apex as well for good measure. Obviously just leaving a bit of room as we're riding on board with Casabon. And then, of course, Lullum, who's directly behind, is trying to find his way through and up and onto the podium so he can have his chance at attacking the Coanda car. Intense, but again, I do get the vibe that wasn't really intended.
Yeah, I think you're right there. It was just Lullum poking a nose and Casabon covering him off a little less intently than I maybe thought. But the end result is I do think that cost them a significant chunk of time going side by side in through turn 1. The gap now up to 7.9 seconds to the race leader and the Australian out front that will be very content with the position he finds himself in. Left side of the screen once more will show you the movers and shakers. Van Luzenoord with that slowdown penalty has dropped a couple. Has promoted Redline Red and MSI Esports up into the top 5. And also see the likes of Kova, BS Competition, and the Redline Ice Blue car. They made their way up a number of positions into the top 10. Starting to fall away very slightly. You can see coming through the final corner, there is separation forming between first Daniel Pastor and Tuomas Tattila for 7th and 8th, and then Tattila and Barneveld for 8th and 9th.
Oh, again, trying to go around the outside. That might open the door for Lullen, but no, it should be okay. Should be. I mean, we don't see too many moves around the outside at the first corner, and this is not an occasion for it. If you can do it, though, it does give you a good set. I know you'd be on the outside for the arena section, but normally, because of how tight that corner is and the undulation of it, you can actually try and stick your way around the outside. It gives you the outside for the next corner, which I know doesn't sound ideal, but it gives you the inside for the one after that. That then is a real advantage to be on that inside, to be on that line. That's why we see a lot of that kind of move work around here, just courtesy of that sort of weird lethargic medium speed part of the circuit. You can see that break there that you were talking about. No surprise to see the Team Redline Ice Blue car moving forward. Jeffrey Rietveld, who didn't get a time in qualifying, is now got either side of him the BS competition. I refuse to call it a BS competition sandwich. It's a Kova sandwich, BS competition bread. Sorry, Redline sandwich and BS competition bread, by the way. But I don't know. I was expecting maybe a little bit more. That gap between the two packs really won't help.
And the gap between Tattila and Barneveld is the big one. It's 1.9. And Tattila's only 9/10 adrift from the back of Urano, so don't count out the 707 from mixing it up for the second pair of tickets to Munich. We are officially 30 minutes done with this race, heading into the final pit stop window in Season 1. And the great thing about the series has been the shift in strategy that we saw midway through the season, Lewis. We had an update come to the iRacing service and the BMW M8 that increased the tire wear, and it did mean in the last couple of races it's been a bit more strategic thinking going on about how you want to approach this. Look though about this, there is nothing strategic about wheel-to-wheel action, 3 wide across the start-finish line with BS Competition pinned down to the inside, almost contact with Rietveld. Oh, Van Luzenoord, Urano, there's a chaos there with Kova Esports involved as well.
What has happened there? An awful lot of damage on the front end of that R8G car. Kova going for a spin back around. Clearly there has been high drama, and I'm going to assume the R8G has maybe overcooked the corner a little bit here. Something's been made contact-wise. There's MSI going wide and then coming back on. There's contact. There's a hit from Urano and just gets carried through by the Kova car.
This is an interesting sequence of events. The aerial look brought to us by ATVO, graphical partner at RaceSpotTV. First it was the MSI car going a bit wide and deep under the brakes. Then nowhere for Urano to really go. And Tuomas Tattila comes across the scene of the accident and really strikes both cars. Significant damage to all three. Take a look at the onboard look with the 707 now as well as Van Luzenoord goes around and no time to react. And well, the 3 cars that were side by side across the start-finish line, they were side by side coming through there as well.
Yeah, just a little bit too fast. There's a bit of contact as well for good measure that we didn't quite catch as we cut away between BS Competition and Team Red on Ice Blue, and it allowed the other Kova car, the 777, to get through. Valtteri Alander trying to make that move, and I think he might well have completed it by the end of all of it, but they'd still be side by side. Yeah, with that incident though, I mean, Urano really couldn't do anything because they had the R8G. As far as I could see, that R8G was spinning by itself. It's just as the MSI was coming back, it tried holding quite a tight line through T1, and as it drops away so aggressively on the inside, the car just started to rotate, and then the Urano car came onto the scene, and then Kova were fairly blind to it as they came through, and yeah, a big hit. Urano out of the race, I think, as well as Kova.
Kova went straight down onto pit road to Tattila with significant damage. Not sure if for Daniel Pastor there was something else that has happened. I don't think he got a slowdown penalty there. Maybe just too much damage. Let's jump onto the onboard look here. Steering seems okay, but whatever happened for Pastor, he's decided, day done, bring it back down onto pit road, live to fight in Season 2. They'll have to focus their efforts on the BMW M4 GT3 car now. The M8 will well and truly be in the back of their mind. Gap out front, 9 seconds between the two VRS teammates. R8G still hunting them down. Redline Red, MSI in this leading group as well. But as a result of some of the chaos on the last 2 laps here, Lewis, the gaps have well and truly started to balloon on up.
Yeah, this is what I was saying about maybe driving a little bit, within yourself for David Williams, because the more that you do that, the more that you know what you can do to reach the checker flag. Everyone else, though, is falling off behind, racing a little bit too hard. It's exactly what we've seen. Just some drivers maybe pushing it past their very limit. Still, the battle for second is most certainly not done, and with an hour and 23 minutes, I don't think it'll be done until well around the checker flag. A bit of a shame, though, for some of the other teams. Of course, we saw the early issue for the Apex Racing teams. That's Jamie Fluke and Kevin Ellis Jr. Both out of the race. Then, obviously, we've recently just had the 707, Thomas Tattler out of the race. His teammate being Matti Siepeler. And then, of course, Daniel Pazda for Urano Esports out of the race. His teammate Dylan Scrivens. Those 6 drivers most certainly not going to Munich yet. Of course, Season 2 will potentially see any of those drivers joining the ranks over in Munich in December.
And so there is a 3-second gap between BS Competition, who are now in 6th with Brian Barneveld, and MSI Esports in the top 5. So strategy might cycle some of these cars back into the mix, but we are probably looking like a 4-horse race for the second pair of tickets to Munich. Casabon will want to try and get on pass as soon as possible, I think, and try and get something done heading into the pit stop window here, because it'll just enable his teammate Alexander Walters to have a little bit less pressure on his mind here, because he won't have to get the move done. He'll only have to focus on getting clear of the field as well. To the outside looks the R8G driver. Over-under attempted. Nothing doing for now.
As much as I think this was kind of a given with the cars that were in that instant all kind of basically being slowed down. But either way, I do think I can see a note from Race Control says the instant lap 19 turn 1. Obviously what we just saw there. Instant noted, no investigation needed, which I think is naturally the only driver that you can penalise in that scenario, because the only one left on the road is the R8G Sports number 6 that's down the order in 12th place, and I don't think you'll penalise them, and I don't think anyone really did anything wrong. It's just one of those things.
You penalise the action, not the consequence. It was Van Loosenaert who lost the car by himself. Not sure you really want to penalise drivers for making mistakes out on track. It's nice, though, Lewis. I mean, race control, it's something that was a talking point on social media where some people were saying we'd love to have it here in the finale. We've got it. And, well, Randy Cheneth and Jerome Kaiser, they really haven't been called upon too much here today.
I was going to say, I mean, they might almost be like, oh, why are we doing this? This is a bit boring. Because most of the racing that we've seen has been aggressive but clean and fair, and the only thing that anything's been stepped in on when it comes to any form of penalty has been to do with track limits, which the simulator handles itself. So Race Control have been putting their feet up and enjoying the race, and why not? I can only say that is a good sign, because it means that everyone's behaving themselves.
Well, all they know that they don't want to be summoned to a trip to Randy and Jerome's office at the conclusion of this race. 1 hour and 20 minutes to go. We had 15 starters take to the grid. We are down to just 12 cars out there and circulating. It was Apex Racing Team retiring very early on. Kevin Ellis Jr. and Jamie Fluke not even completing lap number 1, I do believe. Then Kova and Urano, the most recent retirements, and a 3-car incident that has dropped Martin Van Loosenaert and R8G in the 6th car to the tail end of the running order. Has promoted a number of cars up the field as well. Left-hand side, we will show you the movers and shakers once more. Now look at the 15 and the 9, Lewis. 7 positions gained. It might not be enough if they can't close up to this leading couple of cars.
Yeah, Barneveld in that BS competition car has done really, really well. Alice Jeffrey Rietveld has moved up from the back of the grid up to P7 at present, and there they all are driving around at the moment. Jeffrey Rietveld under a fair amount of pressure from Valtteri Lander and Phil Denez as well, directly behind those two, who have come to issues with that chicane by doing what I think Phil Denez might have been a touch close to, but they appear all right at this moment. And of course these two, was about to say this, that Chris Lullen has dropped a position to MSI Esports, who have got themselves up into 4th.
I would suspect, given the gap that they had coming into the chicane, it was probably a slowdown penalty for Lullen in the red line number 1. A bit of deja vu there for a number of these competitors. Gap between Casabon and Williams still just a couple of tenths, but have a bit of buffer back to MSI in the 474 for now. Talons and his teammate, I do believe it's Alejandro Sanchez, if I'm not misremembering. No, Sanchez is going to miss out on the action today, Lewis. It's Christian Lamela we haven't seen in the SimGT Cup so far in 2021, but he is just as quick as the rest of the MSI outfit.
I mean, it's a strong team. This is why, as a sim team, you'll see a lot of them. Team Redline and VRS Commander, they hoard all the good drivers. And it's like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, you would. Because the thing is, if you've got a couple of good drivers, and say, for example, some of them are sick, some of them have, I don't know, you've had your COVID jab, you've had to work, you've had to miss, you've had to do another race, anything like that, and you can't come here and you can't take part, you need a decent replacement, as there was Lulham diving it to the inside and getting that position back. So a potential slowdown penalty negated almost straight away as he's got back up into 4th position. 2.4 seconds, though, is that gap to the 2 ahead, and where those 2 tickets are to Munich for whichever car finishes in 2nd place. Of course, it seems like the tickets are fairly locked in at the moment for Dane Warren, who's currently leading the way, and Mac Backham, who'll be jumping in that car a bit later on.
Some great camera angles designed by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com, with additional car cameras designed by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. There is lots and lots of ducking and weaving right now. It's not just for a 2nd and 3rd positions. These grouping of cars starting to get more and more aggressive as we enter the pit stop window. Just 15 minutes away from the final time, we'll see cars down onto pit road. Oh no, what's happened in through turn 1? Jeffrey Rietveld.
Oh, no.
As he lost the rear end by himself, because it didn't look like there was too much commotion down through the corner. Kova following in close pursuit down into the 1st corner, the braking zone that falls away from you. Oh, there's a bit of contact between the 2 of them there.
Yeah, just a touch as Jeffrey Rietveld was trying to come back across. We'll catch it again and just see if we can understand a little bit better and how hard that contact was. Of course, at this point, you're coming downhill, then you're turning in, and it's just unloaded. And it's such a, well, I was going to say it's such a light bit of contact. It actually looks a bit heavy. But it doesn't take much to spin the car around in that scenario. You can do it with a very light touch. I mean, how many times have you heard it in motorsport broadcasts where they speak of the limit of adhesion and stuff? And when you're on the brakes that heavily going downhill, the rear end of the car through weight transfer is already being lifted up quite a bit. So you could literally, if you were to reach out with another car and just push it with your hand, you could probably spin the car, and that is not a joke.
If I'm being honest there, the Kova car, I don't know if they were making the corner as well, because the contact was slightly away from the apex, and I don't think the 777 was anywhere really close to making the apex of the corner. So unfortunate there for Rietveld. I guess we've just made race control have something to do in today's action.
Yeah, we'll let you know when whatever comes through from race control. I'm sure they'll jump on it straight away to see how that one unfolds. And they'll be keeping a keen eye on what's been going on, because as you said before, we've seen great racing over the previous 4 rounds, but we've also seen some calamitous affairs. We've seen some issues. I mean, look at the race start from Road Atlanta when they were all crashing before even the final corner, which is something that we've seen not only in the sim and not only last round, but also in real life as well. I've seen it time and time again. It's so easy to do going through there when you just got getting tripped over each other on a race start. It's basically race controller there to stomp out all of that.
I'd forgotten about the calamity at Road Atlanta, where we saw, who was it, Williams Esports, a Racecraft as well, and a number of other cars getting turned down the hill before they even took the green flag in a 2-hour sprint. I don't think it's always necessarily been the case that race control has been required, but there has often been cases where you've had 4 and 5 car melees that have been going on, and just elbows get out there because drivers know that they won't get dinged in the race itself. They'll be able to hold on to whatever positions they have and potentially incur the wrath of the iRacing gods, as it were, and Nim Cross and his wonderful team of stewards that are always constantly working to keep the iRacing service as clean as it can. And Lewis mentioned it slightly earlier, if you're not a part of the iRacing community already and you're thinking about making the jump, iRacing.com, get your career started today, because every day is race day. And while this is not a public event, the first 4 rounds of Season 2 in the BMW Sim GT Cup featuring the a prototype BMW M4 GT3 machine will be open to the entire public, just like BMW competitions have been for the last 24 months here live on the iRacing service. We're riding on board with the Zebra for BS competition. Real world to virtual, it's something that sometimes you don't necessarily think about when it comes to some of these sim drivers and how things have gone over the last 12 months. But Lauren Heinrich, part of the BS competition team, continues his Porsche Super Cup campaign here today, Lewis, in the real world. It's great that we're seeing an increasing wave of drivers, getting opportunities and really taking them with both hands as well.
Yeah, I bring it up quite a lot these days because it's becoming more and more prevalent with various sort of series and stuff from sim racing terms that allow drivers to make that jump into real world. And the reason is if you're fast in a sim, it's not it's not one-to-one. It is not a straight ratio of if you're fast in the sim, you're fast in the car. It's not quite how it works. But you've learnt the basic skills. You understand the relative basics of getting a car quickly around a circuit, and then how to fight as well. You've already built up a bit of racecraft, and you can see this time and time again, with the likes of Lauren. You can see this with elsewhere in sim racing. I said recently, the main one that I've known about recently is someone who takes part in various parts. I think he takes part in, I can't remember what it's called, the Michelin Pilot Challenge, the one with a TCR car, Gergo Baldi. And he drives for Mirror Esports, which is the team of Norbert Michelis, as we'll see if there's going to be a move here. Just saving fuel at the moment is the R8G that we're currently on board with. Team of Norbert Michelis, so WTCR champion. And he's recently won a competition and has ended up taking part in tests and I think even races in TCR cars in Hungary. So and this is a flat-out sim racer that is making that step, and we're seeing that with quite a lot of people that are flat-out sim racers that don't have racing experience, don't really have karting experience even, that are making a bit of a step into the real world of motorsport courtesy of their sim racing experience.
Funny you mentioned TCR there. I was just thinking about RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson, the young 16-year-old who competes in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge with Copeland Motorsports in a Hyundai Veloster TCR, was leading yesterday in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge race, ended up finishing in 4th position. I know Tyler is a bit disappointed with that, given what he always wants with his races, but given that the race at Daytona, the race at Sebring, they had technical issues before they even got to the green flag there, and with 7 laps down in effect once they rolled out onto track. Lots of pace was displayed in those opening 2 rounds. He was very delighted to at least get to the checkered flag on the lead lap in yesterday's action. There's an increasing wave of these young drivers that are balancing the demands of real-world racing with the opportunities you can get in sim racing as well. Getting word from the YouTube chat, by the way, that Gergo Baldi was actually a racing driver before he was an esports driver. I wonder, Lewis, if it's something very similar to what we saw with James Baldwin, who won the World's Fastest Gamer a couple of years ago. Ran out of funding and opportunities to continue in the real world, and it was an opportunity like the World's Fastest Gamer that got him back behind the wheel of a real racing car. It's getting increasingly close for second, but no move forthcoming for now.
Yeah, other drivers to add to that list, Rudy Van Buren, of course. Speaking of World's Fastest Gamer, the first World's Fastest Gamer, he won that. He had a little bit of karting experience and various other stuff, and of course then test driver and simulator driver and whatnot, and has still does his fair amount of sim racing, but also has a job now around the motorsport community. So there is still a fair amount of that, but we are still seeing some other drivers getting involved in that sense from a less experienced point of view. And even then, if you've run out of money and then you've taken part in sim racing and now you've got that opportunity again, what a fantastic display. By the way, just getting a note, I believe from Race Control, a P02 penalty to the 777 Cova car, which for those of you that don't know, that don't have the race stewarding in front of you, which I do, don't worry. A P02 penalty is the stewards have determined that you've gained a position in an unfair advantage, which is what we saw at turn 1, and a P02 penalty is just a reversal of positions. If it is not reversed within 3 laps, then they will receive a harsher penalty. It's a P04 or P05. I'm not going to go into that too detailed, but a harsher penalty will be given. They have switched anyway.
Well,
Have they?
They haven't switched yet because we're waiting for Valtteri Alander in the 777, if I'm remembering correctly, to do the dropping back. He's going to lose a full 3 odd seconds here because the red line car, you can see, just coming over the top of the Schumacher S there. Oh, I do like this, by the way. It's not as harsh as a drive-through penalty, which would, in effect, destroy the race for Valtteri Alander and the Kovas 777. It does penalize them, reverses what happened with the contact, and at least says, you know what, we'll ding you here. You still have a chance if something goes your way.
Yeah, I will go into it then, because he does need to give that back, and it is going to become a fairly prevalent thing. Because I forgot. I was like, surely it was with the. I was like, is it with the BS competition car? I can't remember. But no, Team Red Line Ice Blue, and they need to drop back. You're right, quite a while to get to that, and if they don't, it will be. There you go. You can see him dropping back now. It was going to be a drive-through penalty, or potentially, you come into the pit lane and you stop in your box before they service the car. Something in that vein. Which, let's be real, you do not want. And so made the smart decision, gave the position back before race control jump on it and then give them a harsher penalty. So there we go, balance is restored.
7 minutes to go till the top of the hour. Question on my mind really is, Lewis, 2 tires, 4 tires. What do you do in this situation? Or, for the first time in a couple of rounds here in the BMW Sim GT Cup with relatively cool track temperatures, is someone going to be brave and try and stick it out on the same tires that they started today's action with?
I don't think no tyres. I'm not convinced by no tyres. 2 tyres, I think, might work. Remember when... This is the thing that we were discussing this at Road Atlanta. Remember back to there where we were discussing that some people may take an enormous risk, and that is exactly... what we saw from the Zenith Esports squad. Remember that they took no tyres when everyone else was like, oh, I'll take 2 or 4. They took no. And they went up to 4th and then dropped backwards. Fair enough, all well and good, but they took a risk. They took a gamble. And to be honest, if you're going to get yourself those tickets to Munich, might require a bit of a gamble. If I'm Dane Warren, if I'm VRS Grinder, I'm feeling probably at least 2. I'm thinking probably 2. I'd take 2. That sounds all right to me. But everyone else, why not? Well,
no risk if you're Warren, who, by the way, consistency is... Let me see if I can pull up the graphic that will illustrate the consistency for all the viewers, Lewis. But I'm taking a look at the lap times right now as well. And you want to know why Coanda has the best drivers in all of sim racing? Because they've gone out, they've found them across the globe. You've got people from America, you've got 2 Australians, Europeans, all coming together with one singular focus. Being the fastest drivers that they can be. The Coanda team house is such a wonderful resource, if you ask me. I really love this idea of having everyone in the same house at the same time. It'll be interesting to see, though, how it develops over time.
Okay, now how many times have we kind of had this discussed where it's like, I mean, we said about LAN events and stuff, they're all great and all that. How cool is it, though, to have a house of sim racers, to be in that kind of opportunity? I'd love it from a perspective, even from like a commentary perspective. I'd love to have like my own little commentary house where we get like all the commentators together and then you do a broadcast from there. Like, how cool would that be? And you have that push. I think it's a fantastic step forward, and I get the feeling, yes, sure, there are a couple of others where there are sim racers sharing houses and stuff like that. Not quite the same thing. I do get the feeling that team houses, we see it a lot in esports elsewhere, potentially could be a thing properly for a lot of other teams in future.
I'm just saying, we always kick around the idea of having a RaceSpot house as well. That would be a lot of fun to have all our broadcasts centered in one place. That's the graphic I was pulling up, Lewis. Left-hand side of the screen. There are 2 lap times, in the last 10 from Warren in the 152s. And I mean, you're talking 600ths of a second over that barrier. He has been ruthlessly consistent. This time across the line, it's a 151.654. This is incredibly consistent pace, and he has pulled out a 11.6 second advantage. And very much like you said, no matter what he does on the tires right now, he will be feeling pretty comfortable with his position in the race.
Josh Rogers will be looking at that being, oh yeah, that's my lap times. Remember back in at Road Atlanta where it was like a 10th, a 10th, a 10th, a 10th, a 10th, all very close. Cover into the pit lane, the 777 coming in for a very early box, all things considered. We know that fuel mileage isn't too much of a worry here as it was in the last round, so maybe going for a little bit of an undercut. You saw there, repaired the damage straight away. Going to jump out of the car is Valtteri Alanda, and Toimonen's going to get in. I like the gamble. I like them trying something.
So Toivonen jumps into the car. Should roll out back onto the track with about 62 minutes to stay out there in green flag running. Shouldn't be too much of a difficulty, I think, for him, but we will have to wait and track that. In terms then of other battles, the last 30 minutes have kind of splintered up some of these groups. At one point, we were looking about 2nd through 12th separated by just 6 seconds, and now, well, big gaps forming. The only really close battle that we have up here in the top 5 is still for 2nd, with Kazabon applying all sorts of pressure onto the back of the VRS car of David Williams. 2.8 seconds behind these two is Chris Lullum, who is trying his damnedest to close the gap, but he's only managing to pull hundredths rather than tenths of a second, a lap after lap. So might be his teammate that has to do some of the heavy lifting now as Lullum thinks about handing that car over. Salvatalen's 1.5 seconds further back.
Ooh, pitting.
And who's that coming down onto pit road? That's Kazabon coming down.
Yeah, oh, nice. I like that. Trying to go for the undercut, trying to get aggressive on it. Appreciate seeing it. I mean, this is kind of what we need from some of these teams, and he's struggled to get through on David Williams, and if you can jump him in the pit lane, makes life so much easier. Going to hand over to Kimichev and potentially try and use some clean air to just jump that gap, although that would have worked if they were able to pit, you know, with only 20 minutes into the race, because that was where Williams was struggling on speed. Now that Williams is up to speed, his times aren't that bad. They aren't that far even off of Dane Warren, as 3/10 a lap. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's realistically not. Holding that margin, I'm not sure it'll work, but I do like I like the test.
So this is our first indication, I think, as well, of what tire choices we're going to see here. Not up on the jacks just yet for Kimichev. 30 seconds and counting. So fuel done. Tires now, the next part of the agenda. It was 58 seconds total for Toivonen in pit road. I believe 4 tires being taken there. 40 seconds and counting. So 2 tires have gone on to that car. Looks like Lewis, he's putting on all 4 sets of tires.
Wants the car as fast as possible, which was a risk last round out, and didn't work for some, but did for others. Again, I'm all over it, although I would have gone the other way, potentially. Take less tyres and try and get out in front, because we know that this circuit is so hard to pass at. I mean, we've seen that from Williams, but either way, obviously feeling a lot more comfortable on fresh rubber. Makes sense, and potentially the tyre wear is fairly high. Continuing to lead, though, by an enormous margin, VRS co-anda Dane Warren, just so comfortable out there at the moment. This is a proper Josh Rogers drive.
Here comes Barneveld down then, so from 5th, he's the next car to come down. They are blinking one by one. Doesn't seem as though, as we cross over the halfway mark here in our season finale, that, like we said, fuel not such a concern for these drivers, so be interesting to see as the BS Competition 15 car rolls its way down pit road, how long they elect to stay out there. Maybe they'll try something different, because Kimichev is now setting himself up to build up his momentum, build up the temperature and pressure in his tires as well, and rocket to potentially 2nd place and a trip to Munich as well. Keika Shube then gets behind the red zebra. They got the red and the blue zebras here today. Always looking wonderful are the BS Competition cars, decked out by Juan at iLiveries. Always does a smashing job, not just for this team, but so many different things that we've seen him do, including the VCO Pro Sim Series as well. 30 seconds then for Kashube. He'll go up on the jacks and get the first of his tires. I'm curious if he tries anything different here, Lewis.
Yeah, see if it's going to be a slightly shorter pit stop. I actually don't think it is. It seems like 4s might be the recommended. It seems like it is going to be another 4 sets of tires. Okay, I'm going to throw you a question. Red or blue? Which one do you prefer of the BS Competitions car?
My answer to that is one that's not actually in the race.
Oh, go on.
They have this wonderful yellow car, not the BS Turner car, which is also actually will be my favorite BS and Turner Motorsports car, as we see the race leader Dane Warren down onto pit road. 58 minutes left, then he'll hand it on over to his teammate Hyper Mac Backham. Yeah, the BS NXT car, that's the one I'm thinking of. It's yellow, it is wonderful. And if Team Boss is listening to me, maybe we can see that more regularly here live on RaceSpotTV. Williams down onto pit road. Talons follows him down. Chris Lullum able to extend the stint one further lap here, Lewis.
Yeah, staying out as potentially whilst he was in that train, like in the deep part of that train, was able to save extra bits of fuel. This kind of makes sense when you consider how early the likes of Kova came into the pit lane, because they were in very, very early. It was an hour and 3 minutes to make up. So kind of makes sense that some people could go an hour and whatever on the other side of things. And I think that's what we're seeing here. R8G Esports taking the lead. It's Van Loosenord's car, though, not Kimichev. I was getting a little bit panicked there. But they are also going another lap after that damage.
Up on the jacks then is Backham. Looks like all 4 tires going on to the 88 as well. Does Pash Gergis, who gets behind the wheel of the 8 car, do something different? He's up on the jacks now as we await the next 10 seconds, and Backham going to drop off and roll back out onto track. Ice Blue, they've tried something different. Alexei Usiakula rolls out into the net race lead. Right behind him, here comes Hypermac Backham as well. We wanted to see someone try something different. It's Redline versus Coanda once more here in the BMW Sim GT Cup.
How much experience does Alexei Usiakula have, though, in sim racing? It's so much, and there we go. The change of position, the going a little bit early, seems like it might have worked. Vlad Kimichev's going to try and go around the outside of Pash Gergis. Gergis, though, just stays ahead. It was close. It looked like it might have worked, but it is status quo between the two, and no move is made.
That was a little bit aggressive from Gergis, getting the elbows out down through turn 1. He knew he had to go deep under the brakes with Kimichev's tires already into the optimal window. Look, though, at the pressure that Usiakula is going to come under here. And I think the imperative point here is let Backham go through. Do not fight with the car that's got 4 fresh set of tires, because there's 12 seconds back to Vlad Kimichev and Pash Gergis right now. Alexei Usiakula, Lewis, has one goal in his mind. That's taking 2nd position.
Yeah, it's about the tickets. It is not about the win. As you said, prize money. Oh, BS competition. That's the blue one that Phil Dennis has just got out of. Guard has just got in, and it is off the road. I'm not sure what has happened, but I'd almost assume that at that corner they've been sent.
Oh, Van Loosenord. Missing his front clip magically reattaches itself as Lorenzo Colombo takes over in the team Redline Red Machine. And it's all kicking off here then in the closing 55 minutes. It's going to be a Redline gang up, I think, maybe on Coanda here. Usiakula is going to try and bully Mac Backham. What does the Redline red car do? He's been stationary already for 48 seconds and counting, so he'll be taking 4 fresh set of tires. Down the inside, though, goes Hyper Mac Backham back into the race lead. What can Usiakula do around the outside? Elbows out once more, and it's the 88 car back into the race lead.
Yeah, surely Usiakula doesn't have enough grip, as I think Gergis and Vlad Kimichev are once again battling out of the pit lane. Comes Team Redline. This is about to start getting spicy. Whilst they're battling it out, yes, it's a 3rd place, but you would assume that potentially over the next 54 minutes that they could catch Alexei Usiakula, who's currently in 2nd position. If not, what a masterstroke for Redline, doing what they needed to do in this scenario. By the way, the Van Loosenord car, that R8G car that came in the pit lane with no front, I think that lack of front end was from when the Kova car and the Urano car hit it at T1 when it went for a spin. I think it's from that whole sequence, and it's just damage that has just been carried over that they didn't pit for.
So they were just nursing that then for a rather long time. If you're Martin Van Loosenord, that wouldn't have been the easiest of stints. More contact, no, with the Kova 777 down into the left-hand sweeper. I believe that would be turn 5. Let's see if we can grab one more look at it if we can. Maybe from the aerial angle here, Lewis. Side-by-side running off the corner. Not getting the best look. Here we go. This will be a better angle.
I think it might have just been a bit of space between them and rear just letting go. There it is, and rear is away just as they were a bit close and fighting hard into the corner, and BS Competition down into the gravel trap. I don't think the car's particularly damaged, so might be okay to just keep going. But either way, they are down in last position. Race Control, I'm sure, will take a minor look at that. And I believe they already have. And it is classified as an NFA, which is no further action from a Race Control. So they see it as just one of those things, which I'd also agree with.
I'd agree with as well. So 2 seconds is the gap between Backham now and UC Yakula. So indication of how important 4 fresh tyres are going to be. If you're UC Yakula, now for 53 minutes, you are hanging on here, Lewis. The gap is 9.5 between second and third. The lap time for Yakula last time around, a 1:54.137. That is not going to be good enough to hold on to the tickets to Munich.
No, to be honest, I love the risk. I love the gamble. I think it's a sensational test. It's an uphill battle, though. You've put all that weight back onto some worn tyres, and these are tyres that, as I say, after that change, I was going to say midway through the season, was after round 2. I think that it's basically you're not supposed to be taking these tyres around for 2 hours. It doesn't really work that way. You don't save enough time, and when you put the fuel back on those tyres, they just don't have the grip to cope with that level of weight. I mean, you're filling the car back up to a maximum tank. It's adding, I don't know exactly how many. It was something like 80, 90 kilos back into the car potentially, and all that weight sloshing around. You're asking so much from the tyres that, yeah, if they're worn, they're not going to have it. It's worth a test because he's obviously not going to let the VRS Coanda and the R8G go. But also, I think part of their game plan might be to just stop R8G, to stop VRS Coanda getting 2 cars extra into that Munich final, which means that maybe they won't even be bothered if it's the R8G car. Maybe they're just going to try and hold it up and see if Lorenzo Colombo can catch.
That's what I had just noticed. Colombo is closing on to the back of these 2 cars in the red line red. And I mean, if you end up with a 4-car scrap in the closing stages, if Ice Blue can just check up the momentum of Coanda and R8G, does it open the door for Lorenzo Colombo to potentially sneak a move down and get his way into those tickets from Munich? It could still be Redline versus Coanda at the final for Mikel Gard, though. Day done for BS Competition in the number 90. Unfortunate end for them. Let's see what Keika Shube can do to bring home the honors of the Zebra in the 7. BS Competition, of course. I did mention it just slightly earlier. Wonderful liveries that they've been putting on with the Turner Motorsports team as well. Not just in the virtual world, but of course in the real world as well. They went zebra hunting at Sebring, and the wonderful M4 GT4 adorned on one side with Turner Motorsports colors, the other side the wonderful BS Motorsports livery. We had the privilege of being able to be part of that announcement here at RaceSpotTV, talking to Robbie Foley, one of the few drivers that really can talk about being a true crossover. I mean, an iRacing member since the very early days. He's used it to recover in some way from an accident he suffered back in high school that took him in towards racing and really propelled his career forward from there. And now driving with Turner Motorsports, at one point competing with the legend that is Bill Orbelin in terms of U.S. sports car racing. Robbie Foley very much becoming one of my favorite drivers to watch in action today. Oh, and taking a look at social media as well, BS Competition team manager Lewis McLeod has tweeted out a picture of my favorite BS NXT car.
Oh, fantastic. I'd love to take a look. And, I mean, look, we all have our favorite liveries. I'm going to be honest, I think I like the blue one. I like the standard blue. I know, yeah, it's something, I've seen that on quite a lot. I like it. I just think it's plain, it's simple, it works, it's nice, it's detailed. Also, something that we don't see too much from sim teams, it's asymmetrical in its design. And it's a hard design to pull off when you've got an asymmetrical livery. I mean, look in the late 90s in Formula 1, for example. It's tried by many and it doesn't work for most, but it works for me. It's got the contrast right.
And I do like that you have the option of the various colors, right? You've got the blue that works nicely, the standard blue as we're going to call it now, the BS competition de facto color. This red does look quite daring, if I say. I wonder what the red zebra's name is called. I am almost 100% convinced that the team has names for each of their cars, because that's just the racing driver way. You think about Sebastian Vettel and some of the great names that he's had for his cars over the years. Not all of them acceptable for live airing and for us to talk about, but it's always something that you do to just personalize the car that you're competing in. Yes, it's an iRacing virtual car, but the amount of time that some of these competitors spend wheeling these cars on the iRacing service, Lewis, it's a bit more than just something, a few pixels on the screen.
I'll tell you, I am looking at that yellow car. That's quite nice. That is quite nice. I know some teams do it and some teams don't, where they allow drivers to effectively customize the car, like a personalized color, more so like a tertiary color, I guess, in the sense that it's your additional like bit to the car. So you see the difference between the VRS commanders. Obviously, you've got one with orange and one with light blue. To separate the cars, but sometimes it's about like what the driver wants to add, and that can be done through logos, it can be done through names, it can be done through highlight colors, it can be done through any number of things. And I think that the teams that really assist the driver in personalizing the car, I really like seeing that, because it just adds their character and their flavor to that livery.
But there is a balance to be struck, right, Lewis? I mean, I think about the iRacing IndyCar community, for example. My team that I compete with, we all have very distinct livery. So if you want to ask what a Powerslide Motorsports car looks like, well, to be honest, there's not one single answer. I'll show you my car, I'll show you my teammate's car. They're going to look very, very different. I think about the Team Talent cars. We were watching Phil Krause a week ago on the finishing second, and he won yesterday in the iRacing Fixed 500. The one thing I love about what Team Talent has done, very similar to what you would do in this case of VRS Coanda, but they've taken it one step further. It's not just a highlight color, right? The inside of the grills, the wing mirrors as well. They've taken it and effectively said you can have the entire car painted in a different color of your choice. So, for example, take the VRS car. The red might be customized per driver. That would be very interesting. Something that maybe we'll see in the future from other sim racing teams, which don't have sponsor obligations to think about as well.
That is such a key part of it these days. Is the sponsors want their names on the car in certain ways, and some sponsors bring some colours, and with that you've got to sort of balance everything. I mean, I used to love being a livery designer. I really did. I love playing with it and really trying to maximise the limit, especially with the regions and stuff where you can really add shiny and matte and everything, and you can really play with everything on the spec map so far into such great detail. And then sponsors come along and you're just like, oh no, can you change that? No, I don't like that. Oh, well, I'm not sure about that. You just think, oh my God. It's so hard. And trust me, if you have never made a livery before and you kind of look at some liveries and think, livery looks a bit boring, give it a go. Because it will make you instantly respect livery designers, because they put in so much time and effort to make a car look as good as it does.
And I tell you what, I mean, there are some templates that are easier to paint than others. If you want a challenge, go and try out one of the prototypes, maybe the LMP1 cars. You'll hate yourself pretty quickly, and I think find it a pretty futile task, but it is something fun nevertheless. The word from BS Competition, the name of the red car is the Big Red Machine. Now, that is suitable for us to talk about on air. It is not necessarily as raunchy as you'd expect from sim racers sometimes, but I like the name. So you got the Big Red Machine, the Big Blue Machine, I would guess, and who knows what other colors we'll see from BS Competition in the years and months to come. Talking about action on track, though, 15 minutes into the cycle of the race, gap between second and third, Lewis, is down to 3.5 seconds. They are cutting into Alexei Usiakala by about 1.3 seconds every single lap.
Yeah, the gap is coming down fast. Whilst we're nattering on about liveries and whatever, yeah, you're absolutely right. The gaps are coming down. Also, again, eyes backwards as Lorenzo Colombo is closing in on this train as well, bit by bit, just chomping down. It's like the odd 10th here, the odd 10th there, and whilst they're doing it, effectively what we're seeing in this is we're seeing one Team Redline car get closer from one side and one Team Redline car get closer from the other, and they are just coming together. And like we were saying, I mean, I don't mean that the Team Redline Ice Blue, that Alexei Usyakula is going to block or do anything dangerous to either of the cars behind, but there is a bit of a play here, thus showing that having as many cars as you can when we get to that Munich final is going to be absolutely critical. And like we say, the switch is either there's going to be 4 VRS Commander cars, with 2 red lines, or there's going to be 3 of each, or potentially 3 VRS Commanders and then 2 Team Red Lines, and maybe even an R8G. I mean, hey, maybe even an MSI Esports car. They are not that far behind Lamella behind the wheel at the moment.
I've been quite impressed with Lamella. First time I think we've seen him in the BMW Sim GT Cup, has jumped in, replacing Alejandro Sanchez. Those are big boots to fill. I mean, Sanchez has been a breakout star in the World Championships over the last 2 years. That combination of Apex Racing and MSI in the World Championships, working as a technical alliance to better one another and build each other up, has not only propelled MSI but also Apex Racing Team. We talked about Kevin Ellis Jr. just at the start of the race. Unfortunately retired coming through the Mercedes-Benz arena, not even completing half a lap, but Kevin Ellis, very strong in this year's World Championship on the road side, might also be making a bit of a push for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship as well. He's been competing in the first 3 rounds of the IRX All-Star Invitational presented by Yokohama. The final round of that will come at the start of June, live from the Charlotte Motor Speedway, one of the most recent additions to the iRacing IRX schedule. Pro racers and sim racers will do battle at the same track to complete this 4-race season. Gap between second and third is down to 1.5. And if you're Vlad Kimichev, you are waiting for an opportunity to pounce here, because this Lewis might be the easiest opportunity he finds to get the move done.
Yeah, if the number 8 car, if it's sort of made to misstep, that'll be Kimichev's moment to make it stick. Basically what he wants is for that kind of scenario to happen, because if that doesn't happen, if they both just clear Alexei Usyakula, that's not great, because then he's got to do the hard work properly himself, which we saw in the first stint just did not work between Casabon and Williams. It just couldn't. There was no opening. There was no opportunity, and I'd suggest it would probably be the same sort of scenario. So right now, it'll be this lap, because I reckon Alexei Usyakula is getting dropped this lap unless he can defend, unless he can hold. I reckon he is going backwards later on. It's now or never.
Up through the Schumacher S as they work, you can see the differential in speed between fresh and worn rubber. Down in through the left-hand sweeper at turn 10 they go, on towards the back straightaway. Oh, there is so much pressure coming through that corner, and it's not going to be hard, you'd have to think, for Pash Gergis to get this one done. Kimichev is a bit too far back to make it 3 wide. Usyakula moves to the outside line. Gergis doesn't commit. Kimichev says thank you very much, tries to poke his move to the inside. There's contact between the two of them, and RAG shoved off the track. It's Red Line Red that find themselves now battling for that second position, and guess what? The team games might just start to play out here today.
Yeah, just tripping up over each other. It was smart for the R8G to dive it down the inside of Kimichev there, but basically just got hip checked as the VRS Commander was turned to the right hand side. Just naturally, as you turn in, the rear end's basically just flicking out. Just made contact, instantly diving back down the inside though of the MSI Esports car. But I don't think that one's going to work, as MSI is going to be just hanging on for now. You were saying he was doing impressive, was Christian Lamella. Did back out of it a little bit there, but wasn't afraid to start fighting and try and hang on to his position. Not so much at the moment yet. Alexei Usyakula, though, just hanging on for now.
I think he got the word in his ear to not fight too hard and to try and pull in the gap to the cars in front, because Usyakula is holding on for dear life right now. To the inside comes the 8 machine, but unable to get the move done. Down the hill into the Dunlop hairpin. Usyakula is covering off the move. And with the pressure from behind, Gergis felt the need to go to the inside. The Red Line Ice Blue car loses 2 positions as Usyakula unfortunately unable to hold on the older tires. It's now, though, Gergis versus Colombo with 40 minutes left on the clock.
That was really, really nice from Pash, as he basically going into the Dunlop hairpin in that braking zone had looked down the inside, had spooked Alexei Usiakova. So when he tried to cover it off, doesn't have the tyres, doesn't have the braking potential to keep at bay. What it has done, though, is it has allowed Lorenzo Colombo to be very much a part of this battle. So he is well in contention for a potential ticket. Is it now, though? Not quite yet. Once again, in the BMW Sim GT Cup, we are seeing VRS Commander going toe-to-toe with Team Redline, the two biggest teams in sim racing at the moment, absolutely going for it.
Incredible. I mean, left side of the screen will quickly show you the movers and shakers once more. It's 10 positions gained for the ice blue car. Can they hold on to maybe even a top 5 finish? But they're being reeled in by Vlad Kimichev from behind. Kimichev is still going to be pushing all the way to the end of this race to try and reclaim his spot at the front of the pile. Looks like side by side they're going for 8th and 9th as well. It's Kova and Pekka Toivonen on the outside of turn 2 with Zenith and Sergio Ignacio on the inside. Through the arena section, side by side, they will work. Inside will go to Kova through the next part of the corner. And a 777 holds on to 8th position for now. Some really good action between these two cars. More action expected at the front of the field then, Lewis.
Just going to say with Ignacio, that, you saw them two battling it in between the Kova and the Zenith car, that the Zenith was struggling for grip. That's how far on the limit they were. Speaking of on the limit, there's the dive, there's some contact. Oh, race control might take a look at that as potentially just a little bit too aggressive from Vlad Kimichev, making contact with Alexei Usiakova. I get the grip differential, but I'm pretty sure they might take a dim view of it. This is what happened again a little bit earlier. There's the hit check that R8G received.
Hard to really...
I don't think VRS did anything wrong. I don't think Commander did anything wrong in that scenario.
We really don't have the best of angles to take a look at this, but here we'll go. Let's try and follow along with this drone-like shot down the back straightaway into the braking zone. For Gergis, it was hesitant. He looked to the inside for a moment, left the door open for Kimichev, who's deep under the brakes, able to pull alongside. And if you're Gergis, you go any more over that inside curb, you're risking the slowdown penalty. So I can understand the reluctance to do that. It was deep under the brakes for a second time. Maybe frustration from the R8G driver. Race control. We'll take a look at that incident.
Yeah, I can get at least the first one, which was between the 8 and the 12. That one being, of course, between Pash Gergis and Vlad Kimichev. That was the one at the chicane. It's noted in an NFA, so no further action between two, which I think is absolutely the right call. I get it. If you're R8G, you might be a little bit frustrated, but for me, the way I see that is it's more of a mistimed attempt at a cutback. There's nowhere else that Gergis can be in that scenario. He's, like you said, he's as far over as he can. If he goes any further over, that's a cut. That's a slowdown penalty. So he can't go anywhere in that scenario, and he's given room. Yeah, I think that one's pretty fair. And it also says that the incident between car 9 and car 12, that one being Alexei Usiakova, and of course Vlad Kimichev, under investigation.
4/10 between second and third. I think this is one that we might have to wait till the last 10 minutes to really see the move forthcoming from Lorenzo Colombo. But in terms of on-track action, there's still a couple of things to take a look at. There you can see Christian Lamela 7/10 behind Vlad Kimichev as they work through turn 10 in the left-hand 90-degree corner. You also have Pekka Toivonen trying to run away from Sergio Ignacio. That's for 7th and 8th. They've got Alexei Usiakova on his worn tires behind them. Don't expect the 9 car to really be too much of a factor for now. So I guess we are back in towards a bit of a lull in this race while we wait to see if Lorenzo Colombo can stick a move down the inside on Pash Gergis potentially. He's close coming through the final corner here, Lewis, but doesn't get the best run. Ducking and diving once more across the start-finish line.
Talking about filling pretty decent-sized boots, Lorenzo Colombo, of course, on the entry list, considering the position of the ticket for this car, there is the dive at T1. Is that going to be committed to? Oh, it certainly is. There was a little bit of a hip and shoulder between the two. Just a check on the side of that BRS Commander car. Once again, seeing Redline and Commander going toe-to-toe, and it's still going to continue.
Inside now for Colombo. Can he hold on, though? Doesn't have the overlap. Gergis able to defend. Oh, the wheel-to-wheel stuff is kicking off a bit earlier than I expected. I think then, Lewis, we're in for a slugfest for the next 35 minutes.
Yeah, they've got basically this is Colombo looking for any advantage that he can to get by Gergis and just looking for the opportunities. It was close there at T1. It was quite a dive, fairly assertive to the inside. Wasn't quite there. The harder they battle, the more that Vlad Kimichev will be a part of things, but I do think he may be a recipient of some form of penalty. So then you look back to Christian Lamella in that MSI Esports car. As I said, he's filling boots. But this driver on screen, Lorenzo Colombo, also filling the boots. According to again, as I said, at Daytona, it was where this car entered this race by finishing second that day, and not by very much. Max Verstappen was the driver that day, if I remember correctly, and he is the driver that is effectively being replaced by Lorenzo Colombo. So there's some pretty decent boots to be filling. I'd be almost moderately concerned about that.
Well, and then you got the other driver who was Danny Juncadella at Daytona. So his shoes are being filled by Chris Lullum. That great combo of real-world superstars and some of sim racing's finest that Redline really do have. But for now, it's Gergis in front. It's Coanda that have all 4 tickets in their hands right now. 32 minutes to go. Do not expect it will stay that way for Kimichev. He is down on pit lane.
Yeah.
Drive-through penalty for avoidable contact.
Not a surprise. We're kind of expecting to see that one happen. Obviously, contact between themselves and Alexei Yusiakala. So there you go. Penalty dished out. That's why we've got live stewards. And I do like myself some live stewarding, and they're doing, naturally, as you'd expect, doing a great job keeping on top of things and making sure the field's driving nice and adjudicating fairly.
I wonder if for Season 2 maybe we'll get that for all 5 rounds. Now race control only, live race control I should say, only in effect for this season finale with 16 teams on the entry list. Of course, the first 4 races in the season are publicly available for anyone to enter on the iRacing service. Just find the BMW Sim GT Cup Series on the iRacing member site, and you can get yourself registered for any one of the many splits that we've had over the last couple of years. The gap between first and second is an incredible 17.2 seconds. Dane Warren didn't have to look in his rearview mirrors once. Mac Backham has had to fight a little bit for that position, trying to get past Yusiakala, but for the most part, Lewis, that 88 car very much in control of today's action.
Yeah, really, like I've said, a proper Josh Rogers, Mitchell de Jong drive from the pair of them at the moment. And for Dane Warren, kind of a sigh of relief. Remember back at Road Atlanta being taken out in the early stages and having various issues at Silverstone as well. Had qualified in the front row in the first couple of rounds as well, so clearly showing there was some incredible speed in VRS Commander. And I had to say it beforehand, didn't I, that I wonder if it was the race pace of VRS Commander that was the problem. Their qualifying potential wasn't a question. It was always the question of their race pace and stuff. And here they are running 1 and 2 and trying to grab all of the tickets up for offer today. We know, I say we know, it looks pretty strong that 2 of those tickets are going to go the way of the 88. The 8, though, that second position, we've seen that car looking in its mirrors genuinely for the last hour and a half. There has been someone there, whether it's R8G or whether it is Team Redline, someone has been sat within the second of a rear end of this car for a long, long time. And you wonder if they can manage to survive another half an hour or if it is just a ticking clock.
And full credit to both David Williams and Pash Gergis for dealing with the pressure quite well, because it's not been easy by any means. I mean, the pressure has been constant and it's been applied quite frequently, but they've done a decent job of avoiding the stress of cars close in the braking zone, and they've held on to this position very nicely. Final 30 minutes then, Lewis. It's been an interesting Season 1 here, and well, this M8 GTE machine no longer really competing in the future in IMSA and WEC competition, but it's great that we still have it immortalized on the iRacing service.
It's the perfect thing to see it just all the time, to see a piece of history which is now locked in all of its glory. You know, the circuits of laser scan cars are built and made to like the most minor of details accurately. They are as precise as you can to a real thing. And so even if for whatever reason we would never see another MA ever in the world, like they're all destroyed and we'll never see one, like even in a museum, you can always, every single time that you want to see one, you can see one in here. And here we are seeing more battling to the inside again for Team Redline Red. There is contact between the two, is just trying to squeeze Lorenzo Colombo. Contact between the two. Ooh, that one's a little bit dicey.
That was a bit naughty, I think, from both of those cars.
Yeah, agreed.
It was... I'm not sure how best to describe that one, to be completely honest, but straight to the BMW replay we will go. And we'll have to spool it back even further if we can. Here we go. This is the replay. Ducking and diving. It's a bit of an interesting call there from Gergis to swap back to the inside. We'll take a look at the aerial angle. Deep under the brakes from Colombo. And you'll watch here, it's Gergis who runs very, very wide here, Lewis. And I think Colombo thinks he's giving up the position. Gergis sticks it back down the inside, though, and, well, contact all the way over that curb.
The thing is, the two of them just kind of come together. It's because obviously, yeah, like you're right, Gergis has run wide, and he's effectively trying to give plenty of fair racing room and leaving the door open. But you've got to give him effectively, in a sense, you've got to give him room to basically stay on. Right at this point, just before they properly make contact, the cars just get locked together. And in that scenario, I'd almost guarantee that they're trying to get off of each other, but it's just the way there is contact in that scenario, and they're just sticking it to it. There's Alexei Usiakala, exit of the Schumacher S, and once again escorted off. And, that is the P1 Esports car.
So, well, that's what's happened through the Schumacher S, and RHE is not just one, but two of the RHE cars that's come across the scene of a calamity and had no time to respond. This is at the top of the hill through the Schumacher S, if I'm taking a look at the screen correctly. Yes, it is. On board, let's jump with Vlad Kimichev riding through all of the chaos.
Whoa! I mean, he'll be happy that Alexander Walters was the first one going through there, because basically just open the door for him to sneak through. You don't get much closer than that. I'm not 100% sure. That is so close. I'm not 100% sure what was happening with Alexei Usiakala there.
He looked slow. Did not
Really
look
slow.
like that car was handling properly entering the Schumacher S either, but at the end of the day, it's at least a little bit of amusement for us here up in the booth. And down from 15 starters then, Lewis, to just it looks like 9 circulating out on track. I wonder if Redline Ice Blue or P1 Esports will even be able to get back out onto track here today.
I mean, it's part of the risk and stuff that we're running, in the sense of running a small grid. Of course, 16 were supposed to be here. It was VRS Commander who were -1 at the start. We lost Apex very, very early, and then all the others have followed suit bit by bit. When you're playing, there is, it's a field like this. It's a 2-hour race, and we always say, like, in motorsport, there's, you're aiming for the win. It's only the win that matters. If you ain't first, you're last, or whatever. In this scenario, genuinely is the case. We are looking for who is going to finish first and who is going to finish second. And from an honest point of view, in this sense, nothing else actually matters. And so if you're a car, if you've been pushed out of that point, you're either just racing for the hell of it, or you might as well just be like, do you know what? What are we here for? Bail.
And I guess there's no data gathering, since the M8 is going to be put to the side, not put out to pastures. That would be the wrong description, because I'm sure I would not be surprised if we see it back in action come December and a BMW Sim Live. 24 minutes to go then. Once more, it's Kawanda and it's Kawanda and Team Redline at the front. I just saw in the YouTube chat someone was asking about the R8G team and what's happened to them. Well, how do you put this nicely, Lewis? Calamity? Chaos? All of the above.
Issues. We'll go with issues. They've had their fair few, be it down at turn 1 with one of the cars getting involved. Then we had Vlad Kimichev being involved in an incident with Alexei Usiakala, receiving a drive-through penalty, and that's what really dropped them out of it. There's been some issues for this squad. We're running really, really strong early on in contention for the second spot, battling out with the number 8 car, but Just kind of one of those things that it can, just fall through the cracks so very, very quickly, and it's just kind of one of those things. Although I will say, nice to see that there are some fans of teams. It's always been a thing in sim racing. Obviously, you're a fan of a team, you like them a little bit. Whereas these days, that's becoming so much more. I don't think we're quite at the point where people are going to go out and buy merch of Redline and VRS Commander, but I also don't think we're that far away.
It's funny you mentioned that, Lewis. Are you aware of a certain sim racing outfit that released some merch over this past weekend?
No.
A team that has a Formula One outfit and also an energy drink. I think that spells it out for you right there.
That does spell it out for you. You can buy their merch.
You can pre-order their merch. They have a limited edition version of it as well. I would just say, though, I've been seeing an increasing amount of merch in general, right? The Apex Racing team, they have some really nice teamwear that they send out to their drivers for streams and for appearing on broadcast. BS Competition and BMW as well. Mm-hmm. You have my address, the BMW superiors. I'm waiting for some of these BMW t-shirts to be sent my way to the west coast of the USA. There's some great advertising opportunities, if you will, for these teams to get their names out there even more. And so maybe we'll see an increasing wave of teams making things available for purchase, because it's not just merch that's I think going to be important, because merch I classify as the wearables. It's other things that I think are going to be more interesting, things like posters and things like that. Illustrations, there's such a great and diverse community of artists on throughout of sim racing that there could be some really interesting things, Lewis, that teams do to engage with their fans even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love a good poster and stuff. I mean, I've got a few T-shirts behind me from two years. One, the team that I'm a part of, Sancho Sim Sport, and another one that I was a part of, ACR Zaxby. Got their T-shirts, fair enough. Also, I've been promised by Dennis Lind, I'm going to throw him under the bus now, that I was going to get a Singularity and a Hydra Esports T-shirt at some point, but he is one of the team managers of that certain engine, Red Bull Racing Esports. I now want that. So we'll see if Dennis Lind can sort me out with that. But either way, focused on the race at hand. VRS Commander at the moment currently running first and second. We're currently looking at the Team Redline car that is in third spot. Now with VRS Commander being first and second, that means that going into the final round of the season, of course we've still got plenty of tickets to sort out, it looks like we're going to have 4 cars for VRS Commander, which I'm sure some people would say is a potential VRS Commander SimSport wins VRS Commander SimSport Cup. But I don't know about Redline. They seem to have slowed down a little bit in this race, so it does look like it's swinging the way of VRS Commander.
I just wonder if maybe some damage on the car for Lorenzo Colombo, because elbows were out. You never know. They were hooked together for a significant portion of time. We'll jump on board with Colombo here. Steering doesn't appear to be damaged. That was one of my main concerns when I saw just how long those two cars were connected. The gap, though, is 1 second between Gergis and Colombo, a further second back to Lamela. And I tell you what, BS Competition and the Big Red Machine are not out of the equation yet either. They have managed to work themselves onto the tail end of this peloton trying to chase down Mac Backham. And Keika Shube might be able to spring a surprise here in the closing 20 minutes. But we'll have to wait and see. See if the gap, especially between Colombo and Gergis, is able to close on up. George Simmons popping into our YouTube chat. How can we forget some of the work that he's been doing over the last few months? It's not just posters and things like that. Model cars and die casts as well. I've got right next to me a custom 118th IndyCar die cast featuring my own livery that basically got me to be a part of RaceSpot. I got George to do that for myself. I tell you what, though, he's gone one step further in the recent months. For BS Competition and Turner Motorsport, not sure if you've seen some of the work he's done for them, Lewis, but he did commemorate the zebra spotting car, and it wasn't just as simple as I make that sound. He had to actually custom fabricate parts to convert a BMW M4 road car model into the M4 GT4 that we see on the iRacing service. I want to ask George a bit more about that process, because that sounds like a very interesting procedure.
Yeah, genuinely some really, really stunning work. And some stuff that even my team boss was like, oh, we need to get more of that, because that looks really, really cool. And the work, the thing is, it's unique work. It's work that not everyone can do. You know, not everyone can just make their own model of the car. Like, it's really, really like special stuff. And say, for example, you win a championship and you win one. That's a proper trophy, because that's a solid foundation of this is what I have achieved.
It's awesome. I mean, I'm just taking a look at the car sitting right next to me now. It's always just right there, and sometimes I forget just how lucky I am to have that right in front of me. We were talking about how hard it can be to make paint schemes slightly earlier and trying to model, you know, different patterns and wrap them into the template that iRacing gives you. George has to go one step further than that and convert the iRacing templates back into what he can actually print out and wrap around the car. So it's a very involved process, and maybe one day George can start producing them a bit more regularly for people to purchase, because it is a very hand-intensive effort, and his waiting list is rather long if you are interested in getting onto that. The gap between second and third is starting to come down 0.7 of a second as we approach the final 15 minutes here in Season 1 of the BMW Sim GT Cup. Christian Lamela is falling by the wayside and into the clutches of Keika Shube in the battle for 4th and 5th. Just have to wait and see now if Pash Gergis, we didn't think that him and his teammate were going to be able to hold on to the second position, but we're being proven wrong in the commentary booth here today, Lewis, and you know what? I'm enjoying watching it play out.
Yeah, I think it's been a very fascinating battle. We've not seen anyone run away from this second spot, with the exception of our race leader, who have absolutely clear. No one's been able to grab second and make it their own. Of course, it has been in the hands of the number 8 car for the entirety of the race. You'd be like, well, surely they've made it their own. They've clearly not, because they've had R8G Sports knocking at the door for the first hour of the race, and they've had Team Redline knocking at the door for the second. It's been an intense affair for them, and there's just seemingly no way through. A fantastic defence. I mean, I know that the Nürburgring is a hard track to pass at. I fully get that. It really is difficult. But basically just driven it to perfection. It's the sense of don't defend when you don't need to defend. If you just, what's the fastest line around the circuit? The racing line. If you just stick to that, it's quite hard for someone to actually make a move on you. And if you watch people win in like touring cars and stuff, a lot of them don't defend like crazy. They just drive the racing line because it's the fastest way around the track. And in that sense, it's the best defensive line.
Just trying to think, would it have been easier or would it have been more difficult to pass if we had said, you know what, once you come around the chicane, which they're coming up to now, don't go right, instead peel left and go around for about 20 more kilometers around the green hell, because it's a challenge. I wonder if just opening up the door for more mistakes would have opened the door for more passing as well, but I think by that same token, maybe a bit more carnage and chaos as well. Last 15 minutes of this race will play out on the GP circuit. It will be Colombo trying to chase down Gergis. I don't think he's going to be able to get it done, if you ask me. He is waiting until the very death to make sure he gets it done. Lamela is 2 seconds back now, though, Lewis, so really in the clutches of the big red machine.
Yeah, that is absolutely flying up the order. And yeah, like you say, closing in on a potential run at second place. I think there's just a bit too much of a gap for Keika Shube, and there's no way through. Not close enough at the moment on Lamela. By the way, and I don't know if they're like egging us on to potentially get them on the broadcast or something, but we were asking what was happening to the R8G esports cars. They are currently a little bit way off the back. You can see them there, and there's another switch. They have genuinely been battling out lap after lap. I think just trying to get some good team photographs, to be honest, because it's been some great stuff between the two of them.
Oh, and this is where you know you can trust one another as well. So they aren't going to leave each other the most racing room, but Kimichev and Walters, oh, look at this. This is fun. You said you can't pass around this track. These two guys are just trying to prove you a bit wrong, getting some practice in. Side by side, the Predator machine still working. I'm sure Romain Grosjean will be pretty excited to see this kind of action between some of his best drivers. This outfit has been continuously growing as, oh, look at the defense down into the Dunlop hairpin. Continuously growing, Lewis, and I must say, I love these new liveries that they've got for 2021. A junior outfit as well, with some of the best young French drivers in all of iRacing, as the future is sky high for Romain Grosjean and his esports organization.
They had last year, from memory. It was a bit more of, or last year, earlier this. No, it was last year. God, I'm getting my years all mixed up now. Midway through last year, the earlier part of last year, their cars are a bit more whiter as a base, so it was a bit more brighter, a bit more, I guess, vibrant in a way. They were just a bit. It was white, it was dark blue, and it was orange, which I really actually liked. But then they came up with this dark livery where it's basically like it's a black base with dark blue and orange on top. And then they've added the like the metallic paint on top. I think it looks fantastic. I think maybe the metallics it made it a little bit too dark, but I do really like the design and the livery. It's simple, but it just works, and a good colour choice as well. Which with livery design, colour choice is sometimes not regarded as being that important by some people. I'll just make it whatever blue, it'll be fine. No, colour choice is key. You can't make a good livery with bad colours. But, if you've got good colours to start with, it's actually hard to go wrong.
And, well, you mentioned spec maps earlier as well. There is so much flexibility that you have now to really tweak how not just the colour itself, is painted on the car, but then how it actually reflects the light and therefore actually looks in the simulator as well. So you can really do some very creative things in the sim. I must say, I do like the RAG car. I do like it more than the 2020 version. I know which one you're talking about. I can see your criticism about it being a little bit dark, but I think that's just the tones of the colors that they've picked. At the end of the day, though, still looking very good for Team Redline Red. Let's see if you can spot the line itself. You can just about see the red line down the middle of the car. Very literal in their livery, but right on the back of Pash Gergis as they throw themselves through the NGK chicane.
Not concerned about track limit violations and potentially getting a slowdown. And to be honest, at this point, if you're Lorenzo Colombo, why would you? It doesn't matter if you finish third or fourth. You're looking for one thing, and that's to finish second and to get yourself those tickets to Munich. The gap was growing. It was around a second or so as they'd been separated after that contact down at T1 that, by the way, as much as it's pretty obvious at the moment, was regarded as an NFA. So, again, no further action. Just let them race. Just one of those things, hard race, and they kind of came together and got glued together a little bit in that first corner affair. Now they're racing around. Has closed back up, is a part of it, entering the final 10 minutes that we'll see in this race. And of course, as you've said before, in this car, if you're fancying yourself a driver in an M8 in this series, you want to get that position done now, because otherwise you've got to get your ticket in an M4 GT3, which may not go the way in your driving style as the M8 does.
Trying to just think how I would compare. As I think RAG still continuing to duel it out. Has Vlad Kimichev just been disqualified from today's action? He has disappeared from the timing screen, and I wonder if he's hit the incident limit for today's activities. Let's take a look at this, because I'm just curious as to what these guys were doing, and they were having a lot of fun. So it's down in towards turn number 1. It's Kimichev in the 12 that we are going to be watching out for here. Oh, off onto the track, and there he goes. Disappears into iRacing's race control naughty booth, I would say.
Who was it? Was it? Oh, no, it was Vecchio, wasn't it? Oh, there's the dive to the inside. Not yet, though. It was Vecchio who had that thing of, let's see what the bet is on how many incident points that I'll have to not get before we get DQ when Verstappen gives me the car. It was pretty tight then. Clearly tight in that scenario.
That was contact between the two of them. It was an aggressive defense from Pash Gergis. Lorenzo Colombo tags the rear end of the VRS Coanda car. Redline in second, Coanda in third. Side-by-side BS competition and MSI. There goes the big red machine up into fourth place. Race control, Lewis, is going to have to take a look at that one.
Yeah, they are instantly going to get on that and keep their eye on. We'll need to take a second look. I do wonder if Lorenzo Colombo might have been a little bit aggressive. It was aggressive in the defensive department from Pash Gergis. You'll see him hold as far over to one side as possible, and you can see where the lines go. There you've got the pit exit relief. I don't know. That was pretty covered off, in my opinion, for VRS Coanda. I think Colombo might be told to switch back.
let's one more look from the onboard with Colombo, because I think you'll see that Gergis is always covered off the inside there, and that is going to be a quick decision for race control. And what a shame that this battle between Redline and Coanda once more devolves into contact between the two of them. They were very respectful earlier in the race, Lewis. At the very least, I'd expect race control to order the Redline car to give back the position and re-intensify the battle then for second, because Keikashube, Christian Lamella will be dancing for joy seeing that happening in front of them.
Yeah, if they get the call to jump back a position, that is going to be tight, because they've got to slot in that gap between the VRS Coanda Sim Sport and the BS Competition red car, that big red machine. It's a pretty tight gap to fit yourself into, but I'm pretty sure, as a note, it is under investigation. Race control jumped in on it straight away. And I've just heard that they have been told by Cheneth to turn back around. That position needs to switch.
How do you do it in a way, though, that doesn't also give up positions to Keikashube and maybe even Christian Lamella? Drama then in the final 10 minutes of Season 1 in the BMW Sim GT Cup. Lorenzo Colombo will have to do it all over again. And as Pash Gergis managed to hold on to this second place position, it's going to be close, and I think the challenge might honestly come here, Lewis, from Keikashube, who's been a man on a mission in the second half of the race. That big red machine has been one of the quickest cars all part of this race.
Yeah, from a technical perspective, courtesy of the race stewarding that we've been given for this round in effectively the rule book, it's a P02 penalty that we seen earlier, where they're effectively forced to switch positions. If they don't switch positions within 3 laps, then it's a harsher penalty, a drive-through in this scenario. So he's got 3 laps to give that back. Obviously, you can see there he's dropping back. It's a smart move to get that position switched ASAP, because in this scenario, you don't want to wait that long, because for second position, it doesn't matter. So they're going to switch round courtesy of race control, and then he has to go on the attack again. There's not many laps left, though.
I'm getting a little bit scared now. Is he going to do it now, or does he wait? I would have done it right there and maybe have slotted into line, because it looks like he might have been able to do that. He's slow off of the NGK chicane, and he's still blocking here. I'm going to pick my words carefully. I am not a fan of what I am seeing here. This is much more disruptive to a race results than what anyone was saying Coanda was doing at the start of this race. Colombo is influencing this race more than can be described. It is BS Competition around the outside trying to get into second, and Colombo is still backing these cars up.
I actually think this might be VRS Coanda just not going through. Peter, like the door has been open time and time again, and obviously Redline's just trying to leave it. Now that won't count as the switch of position. It needs to be a full car length ahead. They need to be secured in a position. MSI Esports very much a part of this. Oh my goodness, 2 by 2 as we're going to run down the hill. It's tight stuff. VRS Coanda back up to second position. MSI Esports into a potential attacking position as Kova are also becoming a part of this. What a crazy lap.
And 5 minutes to go. Look at the defense from MSI down the hill into the Dunlop hairpin as BS Competition tries to sweep around the outside. So position has been redressed. We will take a look at the replay maybe at the conclusion of this race. I am interested to see if maybe you are right there, Lewis, because it's very possible that I think Pash Gergis was also just a bit overly cautious and trying to wait until the last possible minute to get the swap around done, because he knows there's not just 1, there's not just 2, but there's 3, 4 angry cars in his rearview mirrors searching for the tickets to Munich.
Maybe intentionally cautious, because what he wanted to do there was to create their no gap for the Redline car to jump into. It might be a little bit of that at play. Again, we'd need to take a second look at it, because forcing it to be a little bit tricky for the Redline car to jump in. He doesn't want the Redline car behind him. If he's got the MSI Esports car, if he's got the BS Competition, maybe he thinks, there's no bad blood, can probably pull away. Whereas then it's the Redline. that's an issue. That's a problem, because that's a driver that you know wants to attack. Trying to break the slipstream, really not very long to go. It'll be 3 laps around this circuit before we see that checkered flag and finalise the results here. Race Control will be keeping a very watchful eye on everything that goes on. It is 5 cars once again battling it out for those final tickets to Munich. Second place is a hotly contested position indeed.
So it's Gerges from Colombo, from Lamella, Kashube, Toiminen. That is 2nd through 6th, and it is anyone's game with 4 minutes left on the clock. And the YouTube chat saying that Randy Chenathan, Race Control, jumping into the YouTube chat saying your wish, was our command. Great to have both Randy and Jerome in Race Control. They have been on top of the action from the get-go here today, Lewis. And I mean, it's been such an interesting dynamic that we haven't really had to think about in the opening 4 rounds. And long may this continue in these big, events that BMW puts on.
Yeah, as I said, they don't have too many cars to look at. Of course, it's just 15 from the start of the race, so it's not as hectic as it would be normally where you've got 50 to look at. But every call has been not only, and this is what I sometimes struggle with the Race Control, is that sometimes it takes a long time, whereas every call has been dealt with quickly, decisively, and it's just been like bang on the money. This is what it says in the book. Do this or you get that. You've got this. Deal with it, right? It's quick. It's very, very fast, dealt with, within a lap of the incident happening. Love seeing it, and that is how it should be. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I understand if you're hasty to make a decision, it would potentially be the wrong decision. But so far, from what we've seen, all decisions have been absolutely spot on. And now we get to enjoy this battle, and it will be intense. The 88 don't know what's been going on in this race. They've been so far ahead, nearly 30 seconds clear of this battle and this heavy intensity. They are so far down the road. They're basically already into next season and already at the final in Munich. They're that far down the road. But this battle, it's going to be tense to the checkered flag.
I like the way you put it. For Dane Warren, Hypermac Backham, you want to get on the broadcast. But if you're not on the broadcast, then you probably want it to be because you dominated the race and made it so boring that no one had anything to talk to you about. 2 minutes are left on the clock, so it will be 2 laps to go. 2 more opportunities, I think, for Colombo down into the NGK chicane to try and get alongside. He's looking a bit quicker at this point, Lewis, but he's got to pull onto the back as soon as he can.
This is kind of what I was wondering with. This is why he didn't want the red line car directly behind Deepash Gerges, because you can see he's already pulled out a bit of a gap on Lamella. So understanding that the rest of the pack behind is probably not quite as fast, and that his main threat is that red line car naturally. And the number 1 vehicle is, again, heavy on the attack, is trying to make something work. Now that there's a bit of a gap forming from the train behind, it just allows Lorenzo Colombo to try and force something down without the threat of potentially losing a position. He won't worry too much about that in the sense of, once again, if you finish 3rd or 4th in this race, it doesn't really matter. It's only about who finishes 1st and 2nd. So 2nd for these guys is the only goal. Let's see what happens. 1 lap to go. And this will be, your heart will be racing no matter what camp you're in this scenario.
Your heart won't be racing if you're Mac Backham. You just have to hold on now for about 6 kilometers or so, and tickets to Munich in your hand. White flag in the air then, and this is where all eyes are focused. Red line versus Coanda once more. Down in towards turn 1. There's already been contact before. It's Gerges defending the inside, forcing Colombo to sweep around the outside. He'll try the over-under here. Runs into the rear end, nowhere to go. Through the Mercedes-Benz Arena, Lewis. It is still VRS Coanda in 2nd.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be for how long, though. Here comes Redline around the outside as we exit the arena section. Not quite close enough. A potential dive when we get into the hairpin. If not, it is going to have to wait until later in the lap, maybe even the final corner. If the door is open wide enough, if there's any contact between the two. We'd spoken before about the likes of MSI Esports who are just lingering there. They're just waiting for a mistake, and they will pounce. It was a little bit wide there from Pash Gerges, being covered off into the hairpin. Looks good to me.
Colombo tries it though. Gerges covers him off once more, and up the hill into the Schumacher S. Gerges has to be so careful here to make sure he gets the run through turn 11 and onto the back straightaway, because that NGK chicane, it's going to be the battle of the late breakers here. They're coming down into the left-right switchback. Meanwhile, out front, out of the chicane and through the final corner, it is once more Coanda. 3 victories in a row for the VRS Coanda team and more tickets to Munich in their hands. Across the line for Mac Backham and Dane Warren, turning our attentions back to the battle for second position as they work their way down into the chicane. Last moment for Redline to stop Coanda taking a clean sweep here in our season finale. It's not close enough. Through the final corner, it will be Pash Gergis trying to defend from Colombo, who's going to try and stick a move with an over-under here. You know, drag race to the line. It won't be enough. It's Coanda 1 and 2, and it's Coanda after Redline's storming start to this season, bouncing back in the closing 3 stages. They have put the majority of the drivers into the finale in December, and my, oh my, Lewis, it is the best of sim racing that have qualified from Season 1.
Yeah, Redline gave it a good go. There was that incident between themselves, and of course that 8 car, Colombo hitting the back of Gergis, wasn't enough by the end of the race, and Gergis came out on top. It means that there are 4 more tickets and 2 more cars for VRS Coanda heading to that final in Munich. It means that there is 4 cars on the grid. Talk about VRS Coanda SimSport Cup. It is going to be difficult for other teams there, but we do have another season to look forward to and more tickets on offer.
In the YouTube chat, I've already seen a comment, when does Season 2 start? I cannot confirm those details, but stay tuned on BMW social media. Sometime in the summer, we will turn over to the BMW M4 GT3 machines, and Season 2 will be just as exciting as Season 1 has been. A global tour of some of the finest tracks in the iRacing service. Started on the high banks of Daytona before making our way to the land of the rising sun, where Redline dominated the first 2 rounds. The tide switched as we headed to the home of British motorsports, and since then it's been Coanda at the top of the heap. Let's take a look at our final race results. Who knows if race control is going to have any sort of influence on these, but we will call them unofficial for now, because Mac Backham across the line, 30 seconds clear of his teammate to take 4 drivers from VRS Coanda through to BMW Live in December. So close for Lorenzo Colombo and Team Redline Red. He settles for 3rd. He'll have to bounce back in Season 2 in just a few months' time. Christian Lamella across the line in 4th. Great to see him for the first time here in the BMW Sim GT Cup, replacing Alejandro Sanchez. The big red machine rounds out the top 5 with Pekka Toivonen in 6th. Sergio Ignacio 7th. Alexander Walters, the final car, finishing on the lead lap. Vlad Kimichev down in 9th with Rafael Razag for P1 Esports. Down in 10th, we saw big contact between him and the Alexei Usiakula team Redline Ice Blue car. They finished in 11th. They tried something different on the strategy. It did not work out in their favor. Mikkel Gard, he finishes 12th with Daniel Pastor, Thomas Tattala, and Jamie Fluke all not making it to the checkered flag. And before we say goodbye here in Season 1, let's recap what we've seen so far this season, Lewis. It's been incredible, the 5 races that we've seen so far, and we'll do it all over again here in 2021, just in the GT3 machine.
Yeah, again, final thoughts from it. We've seen Redline and Coanda take on each other. We've seen 3 wins from Coanda, 2 from Redline, and now all the tickets dished out, at least provisionally from Season 1, see 2 Team Redline cars and 4 VRS Coanda SimSport cars heading to Munich for our final at the end of the year in December. Going to be fantastic, and I wonder if we're going to see more of these battles continue throughout the year. I'd almost guarantee it.
No prize money on offer today. It's just those tickets to Munich. But in total, $4,200 in each of the first 4 rounds in each of these seasons. Totals to $33,000 in prize money handed out before we even get to our final in December. Lots more action in BMW Motorsports coming to RaceSpotTV in 2021. So make sure you follow us for all of your sim racing action across of YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. If you're not already subscribed to us on YouTube, hit that red button and the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series that we get to cover. For now, though, it's Coanda and it's Redline that will celebrate. What a Season 1 it's been here in the BMW M8, and sim racing's finest have risen to the top. It's time to say goodbye. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, and I've been joined by the wonderful Lewis McLeod for today's action. TV cameras provided to us by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com, with additional car cameras designed by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. Live timing and scoring powered by our partners at timing71.org, where you can follow the best in real and virtual motorsport using their world-class suite of data analysis tools. We'll be back in the summer for more BMW SimGT action. For now, though, it's goodbye and so long for the BMW M8 GTE machine.